The knife went into Felix Hahn's stomach at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and his last thought was that he'd never paid his mother back. He was 30 years old, dying in an alley behind a convenience store over a wallet that held $12 and a maxed-out credit card. The mugger's face was blurred by rain and fading consciousness, but Felix could see his own reflection in a puddle, pathetic, broke, alone. His mother had died 3 years ago in a county hospital, buried in a pauper's grave because Felix couldn't afford anything better. She'd worked herself to death at that laundromat while he'd failed at every job, every opportunity, every chance to be the son she deserved. The puddle turned red. Everything went black. Then Felix opened his eyes and Mr. Rowan was teaching supply and demand curves. His breath caught. The whiteboard. The classroom. Maya Chen sitting next to him with her blue hair clip, taking notes in perfect handwriting. His hands were 18 again, smooth and unscarred. His phone buzzed, an iPhone 5. The date on the screen read April 15, 2013. Felix's heart exploded in his chest. 12 years. He'd gone back 12 years. The memories crashed through him like a tsunami, every stock that soared, every crypto that mooned, every real estate boom, every startup that became a giant, every market crash, every economic shift from 2013 to 2025. Perfect clarity. Perfect recall. 12 years of future knowledge sitting in his 18-year-old brain. His hands started shaking. His mother was alive. Still working 60-hour weeks at Chen's laundromat on 5th Street, still healthy, still 2 years away from the diagnosis that would start her slow death. Felix's throat closed. He had a second chance. A chance to save her. A chance to rewrite everything. But he had the same crushing poverty. The same absent father. The same $63 in his bank account. The same life that had led to a knife in an alley. Not this time. The bell rang and Felix stood on legs that remembered being stabbed, walked through halls he'd failed in before, and felt something cold and sharp crystallize in his chest. He wasn't the scared kid anymore. He was a 30-year-old man with 12 years of future knowledge and nothing left to lose. Today was April 15, 2013. Bitcoin was trading at $266. In 3 days it would crash to 50. In 8 months it would hit 1,000. Felix's entire life was about to change. He skipped lunch and went straight to the library, claimed a corner computer, and started building his empire with shaking hands and perfect memory. The crypto exchanges were primitive, Mt. Gox, Coinbase, Bitstamp, but they worked. Creating accounts took 40 minutes. Verification would take 3 days he didn't have. Felix pulled out his phone and texted Daniel Park, the quiet coding genius who would drop out of MIT in 5 years to build a company worth $340 million. Right now Daniel was just his friend who helped with computer science homework. Need a favor. Can you buy something online for me? We'll pay you back triple. Response in 30 seconds, what is it? Bitcoin. $60 worth. I'll explain everything. 10 minutes later Daniel walked into the library looking confused. Felix spent the next hour explaining cryptocurrency to someone who'd never heard of it, watching Daniel's eyes light up with the same fascination that would eventually make him a tech millionaire. Daniel had a verified PayPal account linked to his bank account for his small web design business. Perfect. You want me to spend $60 on digital money that might be worthless? Daniel said. It'll be worth $180 in 2 weeks. Trust me. Something in Felix's voice cut through the absurdity. Daniel stared at him for 5 long seconds, then slowly opened his laptop and navigated to Coinbase. The purchase went through at $263 per coin. Felix now owned 0.228 Bitcoin. In 3 days it would be worth $11. In 8 weeks it would be worth $1,800. Felix walked out of the library with $3 left in his account and a mind full of calculated moves. The Bitcoin was just the foundation. The real money came from timing the crash, buying more at 50, then riding it back up. But he needed capital fast. Apple earnings call was in 6 days and would spike the stock 13%. A pharmaceutical company called Immunex was trading at $4.17, 6 weeks from FDA approval that would send it to 89. Tesla Motors was at $9, years away from proving every analyst wrong. Felix had lived through all of it once. This time he'd be on the right side of every move. That night he came home to his childhood bedroom, peeling wallpaper, cramped space, thin walls, and heard his mother's laugh from downstairs. Alive. Healthy. Watching her game shows like she had every night before the sickness took her piece by piece. Felix sat on his bed and let himself cry for the first time since the knife. Then he opened his laptop and began documenting everything. Stock movements. Crypto surges. Real estate patterns. Tech startups. Political events that moved markets. Product launches that changed industries. Every piece of future knowledge went into an encrypted file, organized by date and profit potential. He worked until his eyes burned. His mother knocked on the door at midnight. "Felix? You okay, baby?" "Yeah, Mom." His voice cracked. "Just studying. Don't stay up too late. You work too hard." If she only knew. In another timeline, he hadn't worked hard enough, hadn't been smart enough, hadn't saved her. This time would be different. Monday morning, Felix saw a flyer in the hallway. Maya's cousin needed weekend moving help, $15 an hour, cash. He texted Maya immediately. She responded with the address and a smiley face. 4 hours Saturday, 4 hours Sunday. $240 total. Not enough, but a start. Bitcoin hit 203 on Monday. 156 on Tuesday. 68 on Wednesday. The crash was perfectly on schedule, panic exactly as Felix remembered. His phone buzzed constantly with texts from Daniel. "Dude, we lost everything. It's crashing. Should I sell?" Felix typed back with steady hands. "Hold. Don't sell. Trust me. It's going to zero. It's going to 1,000 by November. Hold." 3 dots appeared and disappeared 4 times before Daniel responded, "You're insane." Maybe. But Felix had died in an alley with $12. Insane was an upgrade. Thursday, Bitcoin bottomed at $50 exactly. Felix used his $240 from moving jobs to buy 4.8 Bitcoin through Daniel's account. His entire net worth was now tied to digital currency most people thought was a scam, about to begin the most explosive growth in financial history. By December, those coins would be worth $4,800. By 2021, they'd peak at $315,000. But Felix wasn't holding that long. He had bigger moves planned. Friday, the moving company called with emergency overnight work, office relocation downtown, double pay because the client was desperate. Felix worked 16 hours straight, back screaming, hands blistered, his 18-year-old body struggling with labor his 30-year-old mind remembered as brutal. He made $480. Saturday morning, he opened a trading account using fake information and Daniel's help with verification. The compliance systems in 2013 were laughably weak. The account cleared by Monday. Immunex was trading at $4.31. Felix bought 111 shares for $478.41, leaving $1.59 in his account. FDA approval was May 28. The stock would open at 89 the next morning. His 478 would become 9,879 overnight. But 6 weeks was too long. He needed faster plays. Apple earnings were Tuesday. Record iPhone 5 sales would demolish estimates and gap the stock up 13% at open. Felix had $1.59 and no options margin. He needed a different angle. Monday after school, he found Daniel in the library coding an automation script. "I need you to do something that sounds crazy," Felix said. Daniel looked up. "Crazier than Bitcoin at 263? "Different crazy." Felix showed him the numbers on paper. "Apple earnings are tomorrow after close. Max out your PayPal credit and buy shares before the call." Daniel's eyes went wide. "That's $2,000. It'll be $2,260 by Wednesday. You clear $260 in 2 days. How do you know?" Felix met his eyes. The truth sat on his tongue. "I died and came back, I've lived this before, I know everything," but he swallowed it. Research. Deep research. Same way I knew Bitcoin would crash and recover. The library hummed with computer fans. Daniel studied Felix's face for a long moment, then slowly nodded. "If this works, you're teaching me everything. Deal." Tuesday evening, Felix sat in his bedroom listening to the Apple earnings call stream, his heart rate steady despite having his friend's 2,000 on the line. The CFO droned through numbers: revenue up 23%, iPhone sales crushing estimates, guidance raised, and after-hours trading spiked from 262 to 281 in real time. Wednesday morning, the stock opened at 295. Daniel sold at 296.50, clearing 265 after fees. His text came at 9:47 a.m. "What just happened?" Felix smiled. "Told you." "How did you know?" "Research." 5 minutes passed before the next text: "Teach me. Please. I'll split whatever we make." Felix stared at his phone. Daniel was brilliant, loyal, and would eventually build a $340 million company alone. Exactly the partner Felix needed. But partnerships required trust, and his advantage only worked in secret. Still, the opportunities coming were too big to execute alone. 60-40 split, Felix typed. "I call plays, you handle technical execution. And you never ask how I know. Deal." Felix now had a partner, 265 in capital, 4.8 Bitcoin climbing in value, and 111 Immunex shares waiting to explode. His net worth had gone from $63 to approximately $1,200 in 2 weeks. But the real move was still coming. Maya texted Thursday, "My dad wants to sell old camera equipment. Says you're smart with computers. Can you help him list it online?" Felix's breath stopped. Maya's father had vintage film cameras in his garage worth maybe $400 to casual buyers. But Felix knew vintage camera prices were about to explode with hipster culture. More importantly, Mr. Chen had a Leica M6 worth $1,800 that he didn't know about. In Felix's first life, these cameras sat in that garage 3 more years before being donated to Goodwill. A collector bought the Leica for $35 and resold it for $1,600. "Not this time. I'll come look Friday," Felix texted back. Friday after school, Felix stood in Maya's garage surrounded by dust and missed opportunities. Mr. Chen showed him the boxes with quiet pride, a man who'd loved photography and was ready to let it go. "Just want them to go to someone who'll use them," Mr. Chen said. "Whatever's fair." Felix's hands trembled as he picked up the Leica. "I can list these for you or buy them outright and save the hassle. I have a friend who collects cameras." Mr. Chen's eyebrows rose. "You want to buy them?" $500 cash for everything. More than Mr. Chen expected, less than a third of true value. Mr. Chen glanced at Maya watching from the doorway, then nodded. "Deal." Felix withdrew $500 from his trading account and walked out with $4,000 in equipment. He spent the weekend photographing, researching collector forums, listing on eBay with clinical precision. The Leica sold in 3 days for $1,750. The rest moved over 2 weeks for $2,100. Account balance, $4,115. Felix's mind was already 3 steps ahead. Immunex approval was May 28. Bitcoin climbing back toward 100. But the biggest opportunity was weeks away, a real estate play that would turn thousands into hundreds of thousands. The Riverside district was a half-abandoned industrial zone, bottomed property values, high crime, nobody with money going near it. But in July the city council would announce massive redevelopment, subsidized housing, commercial rezoning, new metro station. Property values would triple overnight. Felix needed to own Riverside property before July. Which meant $20,000 for a down payment and 4 months to get it. Monday morning Liam Everett cornered him in the hallway. "Rich kid. Heir to the Everett real estate empire that owned half the city. Heard you're flipping cameras," Liam said casually, eyes sharp. "Making money on the side?" Felix met his gaze without flinching. In his first life he would have looked away, mumbled, let Liam's threat slide. But he'd died once. High school bullies didn't scare him. Just helping people sell stuff. "Right." Liam smiled without warmth. "Don't forget where you come from, Han. Nobody likes a climber." Felix walked away cataloging the interaction. Liam's family was quietly accumulating Riverside properties before the announcement. They'd make $15 million on that play. This time Felix would beat them to it. May 28 arrived like clockwork. Immunex announced FDA approval at 6:47 a.m. Stock halted for volatility, exploded to $89.50 at open. Felix sold all shares at $88.75, clearing $98.51 after fees. Account balance, $13,966. Daniel's text, "Holy cow dude." Felix smiled. They were getting started. He withdrew $10,000 for a second account under Daniel's name, spreading risk, avoiding attention. The remaining $39.66 went into his highest conviction play. Tesla Motors. $9.12 per share. Pre-split. Bleeding money, production delays, analysts calling bankruptcy. But Felix had watched Elon prove everyone wrong for 12 years. Model S would revolutionize everything. Tesla would hit 400, split, climb past 1,000. He bought 434 shares at $9.14. By 2021 they'd be worth $347,000. But Felix had bigger plans than holding. June brought summer heat and new opportunities. Moving jobs during the day, market research at night, building capital through careful flips. Factory second electronics bought for $800, sold for $24. Storage unit auction furniture bought for $300, sold for $18. Every dollar fed the machine. By July 1 combined accounts held $23,400. Riverside announcement scheduled for July 18. Felix spent 2 weeks walking Riverside after dark, cataloging properties, researching ownership, identifying targets. Abandoned warehouses for $35,000. Row houses for $15. Commercial lots for $8. All about to explode. He found a duplex at 847 Riverside Avenue, 2 units, both vacant, structurally sound but cosmetically destroyed. Elderly owner wanted it gone. Asking $18,000. Felix offered 15 cash, closing in 1 week. Accepted. He drained both accounts, used Daniel's father as cosigner because he was 18, became a property owner 7 days before the announcement. July 18, 6 p.m., the news hit. Riverside Redevelopment Initiative. $50 million in public investment. New metro station. Commercial rezoning. Tax incentives. Real estate alert buzzed his phone, duplex now valued at $52,000. $37,000 profit in 8 hours. But Felix wasn't selling. By 2015 that duplex would hit 180. By 2018, 340. He sat in his bedroom and breathed. His mother hummed downstairs making dinner, healthy and alive and unaware her son just secured their future. Liquid capital, $8,400. Bitcoin, $11,500. Tesla shares, $4,200. Riverside duplex, $52,000. Total net worth, approximately $76,000. From $63 to 6 figures in 3 months. And he was just getting started. His phone buzzed. Maya, saw Riverside News. That's near where you bought property, right? Felix's stomach dropped. He'd never told her. How did you know I bought property? My dad handles county tax records. Your name came up. He thought it was cool you're investing so young. People were noticing. Mr. Chen. Soon the Everetts. Corporate investors. Anyone watching unusual Riverside activity. He needed to be more careful. Just a small investment, he typed. Trying to build something. I think it's amazing. Most people our age work minimum wage. You're building wealth. Her words hit different than intended. In his first life he'd been most people. Minimum wage. Missing opportunities. Dying broke in an alley. Want coffee tomorrow? Maya wrote. I want to hear your strategy. Felix hesitated. Getting close was dangerous with secrets to protect. But Maya had already noticed. Shutting her out might make her more suspicious. Yeah. Tomorrow works. That night Felix updated his encrypted document with new projections. The duplex was foundation. He needed to move faster, scale bigger, build an empire that made him untouchable before anyone figured out how he kept winning. Next play was already forming, a tech startup launching September that would become billion-dollar company by 2016. He had $8,400 in capital. Needed $50,000 before the investment window opened. More trades. More flips. More calculated risks. He pulled up stock charts, memory serving exact dates and percentages like database queries. Pharmaceutical merger in August spiking 3 stocks. Tech acquisition in September cratering 1 company, launching another. Real estate trust about to implode from fraud. Every disaster was opportunity. Every boom was payday. Felix worked until 3 a.m. building his roadmap, fell asleep with laptop open and dreams of his mother's smile when he told her she'd never work again. Outside his window city lights flickered like promises, and across town Liam Everett was learning about the Riverside deal his family missed, wondering who beat them to it. The game had begun. Felix Hahn held every card. And this time, nobody was putting a knife in him ever again. Felix noticed the black sedan on a Thursday. Same car, same tinted windows, parked 3 houses down from his place for the 3rd day in a row. Different times, morning, afternoon, evening, but always there. Always watching. He walked past it on his way to the bus stop, kept his pace casual, didn't look directly at it. His reflection in a storefront window showed the sedan pulling out 30 seconds after he turned the corner. Not paranoia. Surveillance. His phone buzzed. Daniel, dude, someone called my dad asking about our business partnership. Said they were from a financial research firm. Felix's blood went cold. He stepped into a coffee shop, claimed a corner table, and called Daniel immediately. What exactly did they ask? Questions about how we met, what kind of investments we're making together, where the capital came from. Daniel's voice was tight. My dad told them to fuck off, but Felix. Who are these people? I don't know yet. Lie. Felix knew exactly who they were. Did they leave a name? Company? Everett Capital Partners. Mean anything to you? Everything. It meant everything. Felix ended the call and sat very still, mind racing through scenarios. The Everetts had resources he couldn't match, private investigators, legal teams, political connections. If they decided he was a threat, they could bury him a dozen different ways. Freeze his accounts. Tie him up in litigation. Make his life hell until he folded. Or worse. He pulled up his encrypted files and started running damage control protocols he'd hoped never to use. The duplex was in his name, public record, couldn't hide it. But the stock accounts could be obscured. Daniel's name on one account was already helpful. He needed more separation, more layers. His mother's laugh drifted from the kitchen at home that evening. She was making dumplings, her Thursday ritual, humming along to a cooking show. Felix watched her from the doorway, healthy, alive, completely unaware her son had painted a target on their backs. If the Everetts dug deep enough, they'd find her. Find the laundromat. Find every pressure point Felix couldn't afford to expose. He had to move carefully. Friday morning Felix dressed in his best thrift store button-down and took the bus downtown. The Everett Capital Partners office occupied floors 12 through 15 of the Meridian Tower, glass and steel and quiet power. He walked past it twice, studying security, exits, patterns. Then he went to the library and spent 4 hours researching everything public about Charles Everett. Real estate empire worth $800 million. Started from family money but multiplied it through aggressive acquisitions and perfect timing. Married twice, divorced once. 3 kids, Liam the oldest, then 2 daughters at boarding schools back east. Donated to conservative politicians and business-friendly causes. Served on the city development board. The Riverside deal would have made him $15 million. Felix had cost him that. No wonder Charles was digging. Felix's phone buzzed with a number he didn't recognize. He almost didn't answer, then thought better of it. Felix Hahn? A woman's voice, professional and cold. Who's asking? My name is Jennifer Torres. I work for Everett Capital Partners. Mr. Everett would like to meet with you to discuss a potential opportunity. Felix's grip tightened on the phone. What kind of opportunity? He'd prefer to discuss it in person. Are you available Monday at 10 a.m.? Every instinct screamed trap. But refusing might make things worse. And part of Felix, the part that had died in an alley and come back angry, wanted to look Charles Everett in the eye and see what he was dealing with. I have school Monday. I'm sure you can miss one morning. This could be very beneficial for you. Translation: refuse and we make your life difficult. Monday at 10, Felix said. I'll be there. The call ended. Felix sat in the library staring at his phone, pulse hammering. He had 3 days to prepare for a meeting that could determine whether his second chance ended before it really began. Saturday he liquidated half his Tesla position, 217 shares at $9.63, clearing $2,100 after fees. It hurt to sell, knowing those shares would eventually be worth hundreds of thousands. But he needed liquid capital for what came next. He opened 2 new trading accounts under Shell LLC's Daniel helped him establish, one in Delaware, one in Nevada. Transferred funds in amounts designed to avoid reporting thresholds. The 2013 financial system was still loose enough that 18-year-olds with decent fake documentation could slip through cracks. By Sunday night Felix had his assets scattered across 6 different accounts, 3 different names, and 2 different states. Not invisible, but harder to track. Harder to freeze all at once if the Everetts decided to play hardball. His mother knocked on his door at midnight. Baby? You okay? You've been stressed all weekend. Just school stuff, Mom. Big test coming up. She studied his face with the X-ray vision mothers develop, then kissed his forehead. Don't work too hard. You're 18. You should be having fun. If she only knew. In another timeline he'd had plenty of fun, partying, slacking off, failing at everything that mattered. This timeline he was building an empire and dodging billionaires. I'll try, Mom. Promise. After she left, Felix pulled up everything he knew about the meeting Monday. The Everetts would try to intimidate him, figure out his angle, maybe make an offer designed to either buy him off or expose his methods. He needed to be careful, reveal nothing, and walk out with his secrets intact. But there was another play. Charles Everett was ruthless, but he was also greedy. If Felix could make himself useful instead of threatening, if he could position himself as an asset rather than a competitor, maybe he could turn this interrogation into an opportunity. It was risky. But everything about his second chance was risky. Felix worked until 4 a.m. building his pitch, fell asleep with his laptop open and dreams of cold boardrooms and colder men who crushed people like him without thinking twice. Monday morning Felix wore his only decent clothes, khakis from Goodwill, button-down from his mother's ironing pile, shoes he'd owned since sophomore year. He looked exactly like what he was, a broke kid pretending to belong in a world of money. Perfect. The Meridian Tower lobby was all marble and intimidation. Felix gave his name to security, got a visitor badge, and took the elevator to 14. His reflection in the polished doors showed someone who'd died once and come back. That had to count for something. Jennifer Torres met him in the reception area, 30s, sharp suit, eyes that missed nothing. Mr. Hahn. Thank you for coming. Follow me. They walked through halls lined with modern art and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Felix cataloged everything: cameras, security access points, employee density. Information was survival. Charles Everett's office was corner suite, panoramic views, furniture worth more than Felix's mother made in 5 years. The man himself stood by the windows, mid-50s, silver hair, tailored suit, the kind of face that smiled at shareholders while crushing competitors. Felix Hahn. Charles turned, extending a hand. "Thank you for meeting with me." Felix shook it. Firm grip, measuring pressure. "You said there was an opportunity. Sit. Please." Charles gestured to a leather chair that probably cost $3,000. Jennifer took position by the door, not sitting, just watching. Felix noted that detail. "I'll be direct," Charles said, settling behind his desk like a king on a throne. "You're 18 years old with no family wealth, no financial background, and no business experience. Yet in 3 months you've made a series of investments that would impress a seasoned trader. Bitcoin right before the crash. Immunex before FDA approval. Riverside property 1 week before the announcement." He smiled without warmth. "That's either the luckiest streak in history, or you have information sources I'd very much like to understand." Felix kept his face neutral. "I do research. Read a lot. Got lucky on timing." "Luck?" Charles leaned back. "Let me tell you about luck, Felix. Luck happens once. Maybe twice if you're exceptional. But 6 consecutive winning trades? Property acquisition timed perfectly to a development announcement?" He shook his head. "That's not luck. That's insider information." The accusation hung in the air like a blade. Felix met Charles's eyes without flinching. "I don't have insider information. I just pay attention to patterns." "Patterns?" Charles pulled out a folder, opened it with deliberate care. "Let's discuss patterns. You bought Immunex 6 weeks before FDA approval. The approval timeline wasn't public knowledge. You purchased Riverside property using cash you shouldn't have had, 1 week before an announcement made by a city council whose meetings are closed door." He slid a paper across the desk. "You're either phenomenally gifted, or you're committing securities fraud." Felix's pulse spiked but his voice stayed level. "Or I'm good at research and took calculated risks. At 18. Age doesn't determine intelligence." Charles studied him for a long moment, then laughed, a short, sharp sound without humor. "You've got balls, kid. I'll give you that." He closed the folder. "Here's my problem. You beat me to Riverside. That property was part of a larger play my company had been positioning for 6 months. You walked in blind and snatched it from under me. I didn't know it was your target. But you knew it would appreciate." "How?" Felix made a split-second decision. The truth was impossible to explain. The lie had to be good enough to satisfy a predator. "My mother works at a laundromat near City Hall. Politicians use it. I overheard conversations about Riverside redevelopment. Looked into it. Made a move." He shrugged. "Wrong place, right time." Charles's expression didn't change but his eyes sharpened. "Your mother's a laundromat worker?" "Yes." "And you're building wealth to take care of her?" "Yes." Silence stretched. Jennifer shifted by the door. Felix kept his breathing steady, his face calm, while his mind screamed that he'd just exposed his biggest weakness to a man who specialized in finding pressure points. Then Charles smiled, different this time, almost respectful. "All right. Let's say I believe you got lucky hearing a conversation. What's your plan now? Keep making miraculous trades until the SEC notices? Buy more property until bigger players squeeze you out?" He leaned forward. "You're smart, Felix, but you're small. Eventually someone's going to crush you. Unless I have protection." "Exactly." Charles's smile widened. "I'm prepared to offer you a position. Junior analyst. Real salary. Access to legitimate deal flow. And in exchange, you share your research methods with my team." There it was. The trap wrapped in opportunity. Take the job, give up his edge, become controlled. Refuse, and Charles would make sure Felix's winning streak ended through legal warfare or market manipulation. Felix pretended to consider it, let 5 seconds pass, then shook his head. "I appreciate the offer, but I'm going to keep working independently." Charles's smile vanished. "That's a mistake." "Maybe. But it's mine to make. You understand I could make your life very difficult. I understand you could try." Felix stood, keeping his movements calm. "But if you crush every smart kid who beats you to a deal, eventually you're just surrounded by yes men and missed opportunities." He met Charles's eyes. "I'm not your enemy. I'm just someone who saw an opening and took it. Same as you did when you were starting out." The comparison hit its mark. Charles's jaw tightened fractionally, the first real emotion Felix had seen break through the calculated facade. "You've got guts," Charles said quietly. "Stupid guts, but guts." Let me give you some free advice, Felix Hahn. This city has rules. The people with money make them. The people without money follow them. When someone like you disrupts that order, the system corrects itself. Violently, if necessary. I'll keep that in mind. See that you do. Charles gestured to Jennifer. Show him out. Felix walked through those pristine halls feeling Charles's eyes boring into his back, rode the elevator down with Jennifer's silent assessment, and stepped into the Monday morning sunshine with the certain knowledge that he'd just made a powerful enemy. His phone buzzed immediately. Unknown number. He answered carefully. Felix Hahn? Different voice this time. Male, professional, vaguely threatening. Who is this? Someone who'd like to discuss your recent investment activities. Meet me at Riverside Coffee, booth in the back, 1 hour. Come alone. The call ended. Felix stood on the sidewalk watching traffic flow past, his mind racing through possibilities. The Everett's moving faster than expected? A different player entering the game? Law enforcement? He should ignore it. Walk away. Disappear into the crowd. But that had never been an option. Felix checked his watch, memorized the time, and started walking toward Riverside. Riverside Coffee was exactly the kind of place that would gentrify hard in 5 years. Exposed brick, mismatched furniture, the lingering smell of old cigarettes fighting with fresh espresso. Right now it was just a dive that served dock workers and day laborers. The booth in the back held a man in his 40s, gray suit that didn't quite fit the atmosphere, eyes that had seen things. He gestured for Felix to sit. Coffee? The man offered. Who are you? Call me Marcus. He slid a business card across the table, no company name, just a phone number. I work for people who notice when teenagers start making Wall Street caliber trades. Felix's stomach dropped. SEC? Nothing so official. Marcus smiled thinly. Let's just say my employers have an interest in talented individuals who display unusual market insights. I'm not interested in whatever you're selling. You haven't heard the offer yet. Don't need to. I work alone. Marcus leaned back, studying Felix with the intensity of someone reading a balance sheet. You met with Charles Everett this morning. Turned down a job offer. That took either courage or stupidity. How do you know that? Because I was in the building. Because my employers make it their business to know when players like Everett take interest in emerging talents. He pulled out a thin folder, set it on the table. Felix Hahn. Born to Minji Han, single mother, father unknown. Grew up in the Southside District. Mediocre grades, no disciplinary issues, no indication of financial genius. Until 3 months ago. The folder contained copies of Felix's trades, dates, amounts, securities. Someone had been watching longer than the Everetts. April 18th, Marcus continued, you purchased Bitcoin at 263 through a third party. Sold at the bottom, bought back at 50. Timing so perfect it triggered algorithmic alerts. He flipped a page. Immunex purchase 6 weeks pre-approval. Apple earnings play executed through a proxy. Riverside property acquired 1 week before announcement. Total return, approximately 4,000% in 12 weeks. Felix's mouth went dry. So that's impossible without insider information, algorithmic trading systems, or... Marcus paused, weighing words carefully, extraordinary predictive capabilities. The way he said predictive sent ice through Felix's veins. Did they know? Could they possibly know? I do research, Felix said. I told Everett the same thing. Everett's an amateur. He thinks you're getting tips from your mother's laundromat. Marcus smiled. My employers are more creative thinkers. They're wondering if you're using something more interesting. Like what? Quantum computing algorithms. AI prediction models. Insider networks we haven't identified. Marcus leaned forward. Or maybe you're just the luckiest kid alive. Either way, my employers would like to offer you a partnership. Real capital. Professional infrastructure. And most importantly, protection from people like Charles Everett who don't like being beaten. In exchange for what? Your methodology. Whatever gives you your edge, we want access to it. And if I say no? Marcus's smile disappeared. Then you're on your own against every player in this city who sees you as either a threat or a resource. Everett will keep digging. Other firms will notice your pattern. Eventually someone figures out your angle, or the SEC starts asking questions you can't answer. He tapped the folder. You're 18 with 76,000 in assets and a winning streak that shouldn't exist. How long before that becomes a problem? Too long. The answer was, not long at all. Felix stood. I need time to think. You have 24 hours. After that, my employers consider you a solo actor and adjust their strategy accordingly. Marcus handed him the business card. Call the number. Don't wait too long. Felix walked out into afternoon sun that felt too bright, his mind spinning through implications. Two different groups circling, both wanting the same thing, his edge, his knowledge, his future. Give it up or get crushed. He needed to think. Needed to plan. His phone buzzed. Daniel, dude, we need to talk. Someone accessed my laptop remotely. They copied files. Felix broke into a run. Daniel's apartment was chaos, drawers open, papers scattered, his laptop in pieces on the floor. Daniel sat on the couch looking sick, his father pacing behind him radiating fury. They took everything, Daniel said. Trading records, account information, our strategy documents. Everything. When? Last night while I was sleeping. Woke up to find my laptop hot, files accessed remotely. He looked at Felix with genuine fear. Who are these people? Mr. Park stopped pacing. You two are going to tell me exactly what you've been doing. Right now. No bullshit. Felix met Daniel's eyes across the room. His partner. His friend. The person he dragged into this because he couldn't execute alone. Now Daniel's father was involved, their files were compromised, and the walls were closing in. We've been trading stocks, Felix said carefully. Making investments based on research. Research? Mr. Park's voice could have cut steel. Research doesn't result in professionals breaking into my home and accessing my son's computer. Research doesn't bring men in suits asking questions about business partnerships. What the hell have you gotten Daniel into? The question hung heavy. Felix could lie, deflect, protect his secrets. Or he could trust the only two people who'd helped him build this second chance. He chose honesty. Part of it, anyway. I've been making trades that are too successful, Felix said. It's attracted attention from some powerful people who want to know how I'm doing it. They think I have insider information or some kind of algorithm. They want access to it. Do you? Have insider information? No. Just good instincts and a lot of research. Mr. Park stared at him for 10 long seconds. Bullshit. No 18-year-old has instincts good enough to make 4,000% returns in 12 weeks. He crossed his arms. I'm calling the police. This whole thing ends now before Daniel gets hurt. Wait, Daniel stood. Dad, we haven't done anything illegal. Yet. You haven't done anything illegal yet. But people who break into houses aren't concerned with legality. Mr. Park pulled out his phone. I'm ending this before it goes further. Felix's mind raced. Police meant questions, investigations, scrutiny. His trades would get flagged. His assets frozen. Everything he'd built, the second chance, his mother's future, the empire he was constructing, it would all collapse. If you call the police, Felix said quietly, they'll investigate our trades. They'll see the pattern. Even if we haven't done anything illegal, it'll look suspicious enough that they'll freeze our accounts while they investigate. That could take months. Years. Everything Daniel and I have made, his share included, will be locked up indefinitely. Mr. Park's thumb hovered over the phone. How much has Daniel made? Daniel swallowed hard. $3,400 so far. That's my 60-40 split. $3,400? Mr. Park's expression shifted, still angry, but now calculating. That was 3 months of income for his small web design business. In 12 weeks? Yes. And you want to throw that away to involve the police? Felix pressed. Or we can handle this ourselves. Cut ties with me if you want, but let Daniel keep his money and walk away clean. Mr. Park looked between them, his son, who'd stumbled into something way over his head, and Felix, who was either a genius or a con artist. Then he slowly lowered the phone. Daniel's out. Whatever you're doing, he's done. You two close out whatever accounts you have together, split the money, and never speak again. His eyes locked onto Felix. And if anyone comes near my family again, I don't care what it costs, I will burn your entire operation down. Felix nodded. Fair enough. Daniel opened his mouth to protest, caught his father's expression, and closed it. They spent the next hour liquidating their joint positions, Tesla shares, remaining Bitcoin, cash positions. Total came to $4,700 for Daniel's share after splits. Daniel walked Felix to the door. I'm sorry, man. My dad is protecting you. He's right too. Felix gripped Daniel's shoulder. Thanks for everything. You helped me build something real. What are you going to do now? Keep going. Alone this time. Felix. Daniel's voice dropped. How are you doing this? Really? I've watched you make perfect trades for 3 months. Nobody's that good. Nobody's that lucky. Felix met his friend's eyes and saw the question beneath the question. The suspicion that had been building since that first Bitcoin call. The impossible accuracy. The unshakable confidence. You wouldn't believe me if I told you, Felix said. Try me. For a moment Felix almost did. Almost told him everything, the knife, the death, the 12 years of memories, the second chance. But Daniel had a family to protect. Knowing the truth would make him a target. Maybe someday, Felix said. Stay safe, Daniel. He walked out knowing he'd just lost his only partner, his technical support, and his buffer against attention. He was alone now. Completely exposed. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Tick-tock, Felix. 23 hours. Marcus. The mysterious employer. The choice that wasn't really a choice. Felix made it 3 blocks before the black sedan pulled up beside him. Back door opened. Charles Everett sat inside. Get in. We need to talk. Every instinct screamed run. But running wouldn't solve anything. Felix got in. The sedan pulled into traffic. Charles didn't speak for 5 blocks, just watched the city roll past like a man counting his possessions. You've had a busy day, Charles finally said. Meeting with Marcus Chen. Very busy. Felix's blood went cold. You know him? I know of him. Marcus works for a group called Helix Capital. There. Let's say they operate in interesting spaces. Algorithmic trading. Predictive analytics. Some less savory ventures. Charles turned to face Felix. They're not people you want to do business with. Neither are you, apparently. Charles actually smiled at that. Fair. But here's the difference, I operate within systems. Legal frameworks, market regulations, business norms. Helix operates in the shadows. They don't offer partnerships, Felix. They offer dependencies. Once you're in, you don't get out. And you're telling me this out of the goodness of your heart? I'm telling you this because you're about to make a mistake that costs you everything you've built. Charles pulled out his phone, showed Felix a photo. This is Marcus Chen's last partner. Brilliant quant trader, discovered some kind of market inefficiency, made millions. Helix offered him a deal. He took it. Charles swiped to another photo, same man, hospital bed, barely recognizable. 6 months later he tried to leave. They hospitalized him. Took his methodology. Left him with nothing. Felix stared at the photos, his stomach churning. You beat me to Riverside, Charles continued, pocketing the phone. That pissed me off. I sent people to investigate you, figure out your angle. But Marcus moving on you changed the equation. Whatever your secret is, I don't want Helix getting it. They're too dangerous to have that kind of edge. So what do you want? Same thing I wanted this morning, a partnership. But on different terms. Charles leaned forward. You work with me, share your methodology, and I provide protection. Real protection. Legal teams. Security. Market leverage. Helix won't touch you because touching you means touching Everett Capital Partners. In exchange for my edge. In exchange for keeping you alive. Charles's expression hardened. You think you're playing games, Felix? Small stakes. Flip some cameras, buy some property, make some trades. But you've attracted attention from players who don't see you as competition, they see you as a resource to exploit or eliminate. You can't fight them alone. You need someone bigger in your corner. The sedan stopped outside Felix's house. His mother's car sat in the driveway. Kitchen light on. Safe. For now. 24 hours, Charles said. That's how long until Marcus calls you demanding an answer. You tell him no, you better have protection lined up. You tell him yes, you better accept that you've sold your soul. He handed Felix a business card, different from this morning's, direct cell number. Call me when you decide. But decide fast. Felix got out. The sedan pulled away. He stood on his sidewalk watching his mother's shadow move past the kitchen window, feeling the weight of impossible choices crushing down on him. 2 predators circling. Both offering protection in exchange for everything he had. Both willing to destroy him if he refused. He'd died once with $12 in his pocket. This time he'd rebuilt his life to 76,000 and created enemies powerful enough to take it all away. The knife had been simpler. Felix walked inside to find his mother at the stove, humming while she cooked. She turned, smiled, completely unaware her son was drowning. Hungry, baby? I made your favorite. Felix forced a smile. Starving, Mom. He sat at their small kitchen table, ate dumplings he could barely taste, and made plans for a war he couldn't afford to lose. His phone buzzed twice. First message, 22 hours. M. Second message, call me. Please. I can help. CE Felix deleted both messages and started calculating how to survive the next day. Felix didn't sleep. At 11 p.m., he sat at his desk with energy drinks and desperation, building something that would either save his life or end it. His encrypted file stayed closed, all that perfect future knowledge locked away where no one could find it. Instead, he opened Python and started coding. The algorithm had to be good enough to be believable, but not so good it seemed impossible. A sweet spot between genius and plausibility that would satisfy both predators without revealing his real edge. He started with basic technical analysis, moving averages, RSI indicators, MACD crossovers. The stuff every amateur trader learned from YouTube tutorials. Then he layered in sentiment analysis, scraping Twitter and news feeds for keyword patterns. Volume anomalies. Options flow analysis. Sector rotation models. Nothing revolutionary. Nothing that required future knowledge. Just a very sophisticated aggregation of publicly available data, presented like it was his secret weapon. By 2 a.m. he had a working prototype. By 4 a.m. he'd backtested it against historical data from 2010 to 2013, deliberately choosing a time frame where certain patterns held. The results looked impressive, 38% annual returns with reasonable drawdowns. Good enough to justify a smart trader's success. Not good enough to explain his perfect timing. That gap was the lie he'd have to sell. Felix named it Phantom Quant v1.0, created documentation that made it sound more complex than it was, and built a simple web interface that output trade signals with pseudo-scientific confidence scores. The real brilliance was in the presentation. He included academic references to behavioral finance, market microstructure theory, information diffusion models. Made it sound like he'd stumbled onto something legitimately valuable, not magical foresight, just a really well-designed system. At 6 a.m. his mother knocked on the door. "Baby? Did you sleep at all?" "Couldn't sleep, Mom. Big project." She opened the door, concern etched on her face. "You look terrible. What's wrong?" "Everything." His life was balanced on a knife edge between two groups who'd crush him without hesitation. He'd lost his only partner. He was about to lie to dangerous people using a fake algorithm that might not survive scrutiny. Just stressed about college applications, he lied. Trying to get everything perfect. His mother crossed the room and hugged him, one of those mom hugs that felt like safety even when nothing was safe. "You work too hard. You know that? You're 18. You should be out with friends, having fun." "I will, Mom. Promise. Just need to finish this." After she left, Felix stared at his reflection in the dark window. 30-year-old mind in an 18-year-old body. He'd died once and come back with perfect knowledge of the future. Now he was gambling everything on a sophisticated lie. His phone buzzed. 7:03 a.m. "Marcus, 16 hours. Hope you're making the right choice." Felix didn't respond. Instead, he pulled up Charles Everett's direct number and made the call that would set everything in motion. They met at a private office building Charles owned in the financial district, neutral ground, no company logos, just expensive furniture and surveillance cameras. Charles sat across from Felix with Jennifer Torres standing behind him, tablet in hand. "You have something to show me?" Charles asked. Felix opened his laptop, turned it to face them. "Phantom Quant v1.0. A predictive trading algorithm I've been developing for the past year." Charles's eyebrows rose. "You built a trading algorithm?" "Yes. At 17. I started with basic technical indicators. Read every academic paper on market prediction I could find. Taught myself Python, machine learning, natural language processing." Felix kept his voice steady, confident. The lie had to land perfectly. "It's not perfect. But it identifies inefficiencies in information diffusion, how news propagates through markets, how sentiment shifts create exploitable windows." Jennifer leaned forward, studying the screen. "Show us the backtests." Felix pulled up his carefully crafted results. 38% annual return from 2010 to 2013. Sharp ratio of 2.1. Max drawdown of 18%. "Those are strong numbers," Charles said carefully. "But they don't explain your actual performance. You've made over 4,000% in 12 weeks. Because I supplemented the algorithm with discretionary trades. Used it as a filter, not a decision maker." Felix clicked through screens showing various signals. Immunex, the algorithm flagged unusual options activity 6 weeks before approval. "I researched the company, saw FDA timeline patterns, made the bet." Riverside, sentiment analysis showed unusual interest in redevelopment zones. "I investigated on the ground, found the opportunity. It was plausible. Almost true. The algorithm really would have flagged some of those patterns. Just not with enough conviction to justify his perfect timing." Charles studied the laptop for a long moment. You're telling me a teenager built something institutional quants spend millions developing. I'm telling you I built something that works well enough, then used my brain to fill in the gaps. Felix met his eyes. You wanted to know my edge. This is it. Not insider trading. Not luck. Just a good tool and better judgment. Jennifer tapped her tablet. Can we test it? Run it on current market data? This was the moment. The test that could expose everything. Of course, Felix said, keeping his voice level. But understand, it's a probability model, not a crystal ball. It identifies potential opportunities. Doesn't guarantee them. Charles nodded slowly. Show us what it's saying right now. Felix pulled up the interface, heart hammering against his ribs. The algorithm ran through its analysis, scanning news feeds, calculating sentiment scores, identifying volume anomalies. After 30 seconds it output 3 trade recommendations. Apple, neutral, confidence, 62% AMZN, bullish, confidence, 71%. GE, bearish, confidence, 58%. Standard technical signals based on real patterns. Nothing groundbreaking. Nothing that would seem too good. Amazon bullish, Jennifer Reed. Why? Cloud services momentum, Felix said, pulling up the underlying data. AWS is gaining enterprise customers faster than the market's pricing in. Algorithms picking up unusual call activity in September contracts. It was true. AWS really was growing. Amazon really would continue climbing. The algorithm was just confirming what Felix already knew from living through it. Charles leaned back. I want my quant team to examine this. Full audit. If it's real, we can scale it with proper capital and infrastructure. There's a condition, Felix said. The temperature in the room dropped 5 degrees. You're in no position to make conditions, Charles said quietly. Hear me out. Felix closed the laptop. You want access to Phantom Quant. Fine. But I maintain control of the core algorithm. Your team can verify it works, can trade based on its signals, but the actual methodology stays proprietary to me. I'm not handing over the source code. That's not how partnerships work. It is if you want Helix Capital to stay away from this tech. Felix held Charles's gaze. Marcus offered me a deal. Unlimited capital, professional infrastructure, everything I need. I turned him down because I didn't want to lose control. But if you demand the same thing, full access, complete transparency, then I might as well take his offer. It was a bluff. Felix had no intention of partnering with Helix. But Charles didn't know that. Jennifer glanced at her boss. Charles's jaw tightened fractionally, the only sign Felix's gambit had landed. You've got balls, Charles finally said. Stupid balls, but balls. He stood, walked to the window overlooking the financial district. Here's my counteroffer. My team audits the algorithm. We verify it produces legitimate signals. If it passes review, I invest $200,000 into a joint trading account. You manage it using Phantom Quant. We split profits 70-30, my favor, since it's my capital. You maintain control of the core code, but you train one of my analysts on how to interpret the signals. 60-40 split, Felix countered. I'm bringing the intellectual property. 70-30 or I call Marcus and tell him you're peddling fake algorithms. Felix's stomach clenched. Could Charles tell it was fake? Was this a test? No. Charles wanted to believe it was real. Wanted to own a piece of something valuable before Helix got it. He was negotiating from greed, not suspicion. Fine, Felix said. 70-30. When do your quants want to audit it? Tomorrow. 9 a.m. Charles turned from the window. And Felix? If this turns out to be smoke and mirrors, if you're running some kind of con, I will destroy you. Personally. Legally. Financially. Every way possible. Understand? I understand. Good. Charles gestured to Jennifer. Set up the audit. Get Marcus on the phone. I want him to know Felix is under Everett capital protection as of now. Jennifer made notes on her tablet. Felix felt the trap close around him, not captured, but committed. He'd bought time and protection, but at the cost of having to maintain a lie that sophisticated quants would examine with electron microscopes. The algorithm had to work. At least well enough. At least for now. Felix spent the afternoon preparing for the audit like a student cramming for finals that determined his life. He stress-tested every component, verified every calculation, made sure the documentation was airtight. The algorithm was real. It just wasn't good enough to explain his success. That gap, between what Phantom Quant could do and what Felix had actually accomplished, was the lie he had to obscure with confidence and technical jargon. At 4 p.m. his phone rang. Unknown number. He answered cautiously. Felix Han. Marcus Chen's voice, colder than their coffee shop meeting. I hear you've made a choice. Charles Everett called you? Charles Everett warned me off you. Said you're under his protection. Said you're bringing proprietary technology to Everett Capital. Marcus laughed without humor. That's disappointing, Felix. I thought you were smarter than that. I made the choice that felt right. You made the choice that felt safe. There's a difference. Background noise on Marcus's end, traffic, voices, the ambient sound of the city. Let me give you some advice, since we won't be working together. Charles Everett is a predator. He smiles, shakes hands, acts like a businessman. But he's a shark. And the moment your algorithm stops performing, the moment you're not useful anymore, he'll eat you alive. I'll take my chances. Will you? Because here's what's going to happen. Charles's quants will audit your system tomorrow. They'll find it's good, not great, just good. Solid technical analysis, decent pattern recognition, nothing revolutionary. And Charles will wonder how that explains your perfect track record. He'll start asking questions. Digging deeper. And when he figures out you've been lying. Marcus let the threat hang. I haven't lied, Felix said. The algorithm is real. But it's not your real edge, is it? There's something else. Something you're not telling anyone. Marcus's voice dropped. My employers are patient, Felix. Charles will burn you the moment you stop being profitable. When that happens, and it will happen, call me. We'll still be interested. But the terms won't be as generous. The call ended. Felix sat in his bedroom staring at his phone, Marcus's words echoing in his head. The man was right about one thing, the algorithm couldn't sustain his winning streak. Eventually the gaps would show. Eventually Charles would realize Phantom Quant was sophisticated camouflage for something unexplainable. Felix needed insurance. A backup plan for when the lie started cracking. He pulled up his encrypted files and started documenting future events in a new format, not as a timeline, but as algorithmic predictions. Made it look like Phantom Quant had flagged them as high-probability scenarios. Tesla Model S launch, frame it as automotive disruption analysis. Facebook mobile ad revenue spike, frame it as social media monetization patterns. Twitter IPO, frame it as platform maturity indicators. Every piece of future knowledge translated into language that supported the algorithm narrative. It was exhausting. Every moment he had to maintain multiple layers of deception, remember which lies he'd told to whom, keep his real edge hidden while appearing to reveal it. His mother called him down for dinner at 6 p.m. They ate quietly, pot roast and vegetables, her Thursday ritual. She kept glancing at him with concern. Baby, you're stressed. I can see it. What's going on? Just school stuff, Mom. College applications, trying to figure out my future. You're 18. You don't have to figure everything out right now. If she only knew. He'd died at 30 and come back to save her. Had rebuilt his life to $76,000. Had attracted the attention of billionaires and shadow organizations. Had built a fake algorithm to survive predators who'd kill him if they learned the truth. I know, Mom. Just want to make you proud. She reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Baby, you make me proud every day. Just by being you. All this other stuff, money, success, college, it doesn't matter if you're not happy. But it did matter. In another timeline she'd died in a county hospital because he couldn't afford better. Died exhausted and broke because he'd failed her. This time would be different. This time he'd give her everything. Even if it meant lying to everyone else. After dinner Felix returned to his room and found an email waiting. Jennifer Torres, subject line, audit preparation. Felix. Tomorrow's audit will involve code review by our senior quant, Dr. Rachel Kim, live trading signals versus market data, statistical validation of claimed performance. Risk assessment and position sizing logic. Please bring laptop with full algorithm access, all documentation and backtests. Explanation of data sources and update frequencies. The audit will take 3 to 4 hours. Dr. Kim is thorough. Be prepared to answer technical questions. Jennifer. Felix read it 3 times, anxiety building with each pass. Dr. Rachel Kim was a legend in quant circles, MIT PhD, former Goldman Sachs managing director, papers published in leading journals. She'd built algorithmic trading systems worth billions. She would see through Phantom Quant in 30 seconds. Unless Felix was very, very good. He spent the next 6 hours reinforcing the algorithm's foundation, adding layers of complexity that looked impressive but didn't change the core logic. Threw in some machine learning buzzwords, neural networks, gradient boosting, ensemble methods. Made the documentation dense enough that it would take hours to fully parse. The strategy was simple: bury any weaknesses in enough technical sophistication that Dr. Kim would have to give him credit for the attempt, even if the results weren't revolutionary. At 2 a.m. Felix finally stopped typing and let himself breathe. Tomorrow would determine everything. Either Phantom Quant would pass as legitimate, or his empire would collapse before it really began. Tuesday morning Felix wore his best clothes, still thrift store, but pressed and professional. He arrived at Everett Capital at 8:45 a.m. carrying his laptop like it contained nuclear codes. Jennifer met him in the lobby. "Dr. Kim is ready. Follow me." The audit room was all glass walls and whiteboards, designed for transparency. Dr. Kim sat at the head of a conference table, early 50s, sharp suit, eyes that had calculated billion-dollar trades. Two junior analysts flanked her, laptops open. Felix Han. Dr. Kim stood, shook his hand with a grip that meant business. "I've heard interesting things about you. Sit. Let's see what you've built." Felix sat. Opened his laptop. Every nerve in his body screamed danger. "Phantom Quant v1.0, he said, turning the screen to face her. "A predictive trading system based on multi-factor analysis and information diffusion modeling." Dr. Kim studied the interface for 5 seconds, then looked at him. "Walk me through the architecture." Felix launched into his prepared explanation: data ingestion layer, sentiment analysis engine, technical indicator calculator, probability weighting system, signal aggregation. He spoke confidently, using terms he'd learned from the academic papers he'd read obsessively over the past day. Dr. Kim listened without expression. When he finished, she leaned forward. "Show me the code." Felix's pulse spiked. "The core algorithm is proprietary. I'm not asking to copy it. I'm asking to verify it does what you claim." Her eyes didn't blink. "If you want Charles Everett to invest $200,000 based on your system, I need to see it actually works. Not just trust your documentation." There was no escape. Felix opened the source code. Dr. Kim pulled his laptop toward her and started reading. Line by line. Function by function. Her face remained neutral but her fingers tapped the table, a tell Felix recognized from poker players. She was calculating something. After 10 minutes she looked up. "This is clever." Felix's heart hammered. "Thank you. But it's not revolutionary." She spun the laptop back to him. "You've built a solid multi-factor model with some interesting sentiment analysis. The information diffusion angle is creative. But these components aren't new. Firms have been using variations of this for years. I didn't claim it was revolutionary. Just that it works." "Does it?" Dr. Kim gestured to one of her analysts. "Pull up market data from the past month. Let's test this live." The analyst projected real-time data onto a wall screen: stock prices, volume, news feeds, social media sentiment. Dr. Kim pointed at the data. "Run your algorithm. Show me what signals it generates right now." Felix's hands trembled slightly as he initialized Phantom Quant. The system pulled data, ran calculations, output results. TSLA, bullish, confidence, 68% FB, neutral, confidence, 54%. NFLX, bullish, confidence, 71% GLD, bearish, confidence, 63%. Dr. Kim studied the signals. Tesla bullish. Why? Unusual options activity. Social media sentiment shifting positive. Technical indicators showing momentum reversal. Felix pulled up the underlying data. Model sees these patterns converging. And if I told you Tesla just missed production targets last week and analysts are bearish? I'd say the market's overreacting. Production issues are temporary. Long-term thesis remains intact. Felix kept his voice steady. The algorithm identifies when sentiment diverges from fundamentals. That's where opportunities are. Dr. Kim leaned back, studying him with intensity that felt like X-rays. "You're either very smart or very lucky. Let's find out which." She spent the next 2 hours stress testing the algorithm. Ran it against historical crashes. Fed it fake data to test error handling. Asked probability questions that required deep understanding of statistical modeling. Felix answered every question, drew on his 30 years of market experience wrapped in 18-year-old confidence. He wasn't defending Phantom Quant's code, he was defending his thesis that good tools plus human judgment could beat markets. Finally, at 11:30 a.m., Dr. Kim closed her laptop. "My assessment," she said, looking at Felix, "is that you've built a legitimate trading tool. Not groundbreaking, but solid. The real question is whether your claimed returns came from the algorithm or from something else." Felix's throat went dry. "What do you mean?" I mean, your backtests show 38% annual returns. But you've made 4,000% in 12 weeks. That gap is enormous. She leaned forward. Either you're the best discretionary trader I've ever met, or you got phenomenally lucky, or there's another variable you're not disclosing. The room went silent. Jennifer watched from the corner. The analyst stopped typing. Everything balanced on Felix's next words. The algorithm identifies opportunities, Felix said carefully. But I choose which ones to take and how aggressively to size them. Immunex, Phantom Quant flagged it as medium probability. I did additional research, saw the FDA timeline was actually very favorable, bet bigger than the model suggested. Riverside, the algorithm showed unusual interest in redevelopment zones. I walked the neighborhood, talked to locals, found the specific opportunity. So you're saying you're better than your own algorithm? I'm saying the algorithm is a filter. I'm the decision maker. Dr. Kim studied him for a long moment, then turned to Jennifer. My recommendation is conditional approval. The algorithm is legitimate. Felix's judgment appears sound based on his track record. But I want weekly performance reviews. If the system stops working, we cut exposure immediately. Jennifer made notes. I'll inform Mr. Everett. Dr. Kim stood, extended her hand to Felix. Congratulations. You just convinced a former Goldman MD that a teenager built something valuable. She held his grip firm. Don't make me regret it. Felix shook her hand, feeling like he'd just defused a bomb with 30 seconds left on the timer. Charles Everett's office, 2 p.m. Felix sat across the desk while Charles reviewed Dr. Kim's report on an iPad. She says you're legitimate, Charles said. Also says you're hiding something. I'm not. Everyone's hiding something, Felix. Question is whether what you're hiding matters. Charles set down the iPad. 200,000. 70-30 split. You run the account using your algorithm and your judgment. Weekly reports to Jennifer. Any trade over 50,000 requires approval. Deal? It was worse terms than Felix wanted, but better than being destroyed by Helix or crushed by Charles's legal team. Deal. Charles pulled out a contract, slid it across the desk. Sign. Felix read through it quickly. Standard investment partnership agreement, weighted heavily in Charles's favor. Clauses about confidentiality, non-compete, dispute resolution. Nothing unexpected except one section. In the event of consistent underperformance, defined as 3 consecutive months below 5% returns, Everett Capital Partners reserves the right to assume full control of trading strategy and methodology. A trapdoor. If Phantom Quant couldn't maintain impossible returns, Charles could seize control. Take the algorithm, examine it completely, discover the truth. Felix had maybe 3 months before the lie started showing cracks. He signed anyway. 3 months was enough time to execute his next plays, build enough capital to survive independently, and maybe find a way out of this mess. Charles countersigned, handed him a check for $200,000 made out to Han Everett Trading LLC. Open an account, start trading, make me money. Charles leaned back. And Felix? I'm protecting you from Marcus and Helix. But that protection is conditional on results. Don't forget that. I won't. Felix walked out of Everett Capital with a check for $200,000 and a timeline of 3 months before everything collapsed. His phone buzzed immediately. Unknown number. He answered. Congratulations on your partnership. Marcus Chen's voice dripped with false warmth. Charles Everett is a lucky man. How did you? I know everything that happens in this city's financial sector. Including when teenagers sign deals with billionaires. Marcus paused. When it falls apart, Felix, and it will fall apart, call me. The offer stands. But like I said, terms won't be as generous. The call ended. Felix stood on the sidewalk outside Everett Capital, clutching a check worth more than his mother made in 4 years, surrounded by enemies on all sides, maintaining a lie that sophisticated quants had nearly exposed. He'd bought time. But time was running out faster than anyone knew. His only advantage was that nobody, not Charles, not Marcus, not Dr. Kim, could imagine the truth, that Felix Han had died in an alley and come back with 12 years of perfect knowledge. Phantom Quant was smoke and mirrors. The real algorithm was Felix's memory. And he just bet everything that nobody would figure that out before he could secure his empire. 3 months. 90 days to turn 200,000 into enough money that he'd never need protection from predators like Charles Everett. Felix looked at the check one more time, then started walking. He had work to do. Felix opened the Han Everett Trading LLC account Wednesday morning with shaking hands and $200,000 he couldn't afford to lose. The weight of it pressed against his chest like a physical thing, not just the money, but the expectations, the scrutiny, the ticking clock. 3 months. Maybe less if Dr. Kim spotted something wrong. He logged into Phantom Quant and ran the morning scan, expecting the usual output, moderate confidence signals based on technical patterns and sentiment data. Safe plays that would generate steady returns without drawing attention. The algorithm churned through data for 30 seconds. Then it printed results that made Felix's blood turn to ice. JNPR, bullish, confidence, 84%. AMZN, neutral, confidence, 61%. BAC, bearish, confidence, 58%. MSFT, bullish, confidence, 69%. Felix stared at the Juniper network signal. 84% confidence. The highest conviction call Phantom Quant had ever generated. And it shouldn't exist. Juniper was trading flat. No unusual options activity. No news. No earnings coming up. No analyst upgrades. Nothing in the public data stream that would justify an 84% conviction buy signal. Nothing except what Felix knew from living through this timeline before. Juniper was 3 weeks away from announcing a massive patent settlement with Cisco that would send the stock up 23% in a single day. Information that was currently locked in lawyers' offices and executive boardrooms. Information Phantom Quant couldn't possibly have access to. Felix's hands trembled as he opened the algorithm's code, searching for the error. Traced through the data pipelines, the calculation engines, the signal aggregation logic. Everything looked normal. The system was functioning exactly as designed. Then he found it. Buried in the prediction weight calculations, a reference to an external data file he'd forgotten about. The encrypted notes where he documented future events to frame as algorithmic predictions. JNPR_patent_settlement.json. Somehow, in his exhausted, panicked preparation for the audit, he'd accidentally integrated one of his future knowledge files into Phantom Quant's actual prediction engine. The algorithm had pulled the data, assigned it a weight, and output it as a legitimate signal. The fake prediction had become a real output. Felix closed his laptop and tried to breathe. This was catastrophic. If he took the trade and Juniper exploded exactly as predicted, Phantom Quant would look too good. Dr. Kim would investigate. She'd examine the code more carefully, find the external data reference, trace it back to his encrypted files. And then Charles would know Felix had been lying about everything. But if he ignored the signal, if he deliberately passed on an 84% confidence call that turned out to be perfect, Dr. Kim would ask why. Would question his judgment. Would wonder why he'd built an algorithm he didn't trust. Either path led to exposure. Felix's phone rang. Jennifer Torres. Felix. Dr. Kim reviewed your morning signals. She wants to discuss the Juniper call. Conference room, 30 minutes. Okay. I'll be there. Don't be late. She seems concerned. The call ended. Felix sat in his bedroom staring at his laptop, 30-year-old mind racing through scenarios while his 18-year-old body fought off panic. He had 30 minutes to figure out how to explain the unexplainable. Dr. Kim sat at the conference table with 3 monitors displaying market data, Phantom Quant's code, and statistical analysis tools. She didn't look up when Felix entered. Juniper Networks, she said. Walk me through why your algorithm is so confident. Felix sat, forcing his voice steady. The model sees. I know what the model sees. I've analyzed the inputs. Dr. Kim finally looked at him, eyes sharp as scalpels. No unusual options flow. No sentiment spike. No technical breakout. No fundamental catalyst. The stock's been range bound for 6 months. Every rational indicator says neutral. Sometimes the algorithm picks up patterns. What patterns, Felix? Show me. She spun one of her monitors toward him. I've replicated your entire data pipeline. Fed it the same inputs. My version outputs 51% confidence, basically a coin flip. Yours outputs 84%. That's not a rounding error. That's a completely different conclusion from identical data. Felix's mind raced. The external file. The reference he'd accidentally left in. Dr. Kim hadn't found it yet, but she would if she kept digging. There might be a bug, Felix said carefully. I was making adjustments before the audit. Could have introduced an error. A bug that makes your algorithm more confident? That's not how bugs work. Dr. Kim pulled up Phantom Quant's code. I want to run a line-by-line comparison. Your version versus the clean version you showed me Monday. Find out what's different. Felix's stomach dropped. A comparison would expose the external file reference immediately. Game over. Or, Dr. Kim continued, her voice dropping, you can tell me the truth right now. Save us both time. The room felt too small. Felix met her eyes and saw a woman who'd built billion-dollar systems, who'd survived Goldman Sachs politics, who'd vetted thousands of traders and quants. She knew something was wrong. She was giving him one chance to come clean before she destroyed him. Felix made a decision. I've been experimenting with alternative data sources, he said. Web scraping for early indicators. Dark pool analysis. Things I didn't include in the official documentation because they're gray area. It was a partial truth. Enough to explain anomalies without revealing the real secret. Dr. Kim leaned back. What kind of gray area? Scraping investor forums for insider chatter. Monitoring executive LinkedIn activity. Tracking corporate jet movements. Felix held her gaze. Legal, but not conventional. I wasn't sure how Charles would react, so I kept it out of the main documentation. Show me. Felix opened a terminal and pulled up some of the alternative data pipelines he'd actually built as camouflage, simple scrapers that pulled public data from forums and social media. Nothing that would actually generate an 84% confidence signal on Juniper, but enough to muddy the waters. This corporate jet tracker, Dr. Kim said, pointing at one script. You're monitoring C-suite travel patterns? Yes. Theory is that unusual executive travel to specific cities precedes announcements, acquisitions, partnerships, major deals. And you think Juniper executives are traveling somewhere significant? Felix nodded, praying she wouldn't check. San Jose. Cisco headquarters. Multiple visits in the past 2 weeks. It was true. He remembered from the first timeline, the patent settlement negotiations had required face-to-face meetings. The jet data would actually support his story. Dr. Kim pulled up flight tracking data on one of her monitors. Typed in tail numbers. After 2 minutes she sat back, expression unreadable. Juniper's CEO and General Counsel were both in San Jose last Tuesday and Thursday. Cisco's campus area. She looked at Felix. You built a system that tracks executive travel and correlates it with deal probabilities? Yes. That's actually brilliant. She smiled for the first time since Felix had met her. Also probably violates about 12 different compliance policies, which is why you kept it quiet. Felix nodded, relief flooding through him like cold water. Here's what's going to happen, Dr. Kim said. You're going to show me every alternative data source you're using. All of it. I'll assess legal risk and decide what Charles needs to know. Some of it might be too aggressive for Everett Capital's compliance standards. But if it works, if it genuinely gives you an edge, we'll find a way to sanitize it. Okay. And Felix? Her eyes hardened. No more surprises. No more mystery data sources I discover by accident. If you're using something unconventional, I need to know. Because if I find out you're hiding additional methods. She let the threat hang. Understood. Good. Now, what's your conviction on this Juniper trade? Felix's mind raced. Taking the trade meant potentially exposing how good his predictions were. Passing meant wasting a guaranteed win and looking incompetent. Medium, he said. The executive travel is interesting but not conclusive. I'd allocate maybe 5% of the portfolio. Small enough that if I'm wrong, it doesn't hurt. Big enough that if I'm right, it matters. Dr. Kim considered this. Reasonable position sizing. Do it. 10,000 on Juniper. Let's see if your jet tracking theory holds up. Felix nodded and tried not to show the panic screaming through his brain. He'd just committed to a trade that would prove his system worked too well. In 3 weeks when Juniper popped 23%, Dr. Kim would dig deeper. Find more inconsistencies. Eventually expose the truth. He'd bought time by explaining one mystery. But he'd created a bigger problem. Now Phantom Quant looked legitimately powerful instead of just adequate. That night Felix tore through his encrypted files, hunting for every instance where he'd accidentally integrated future knowledge into Phantom Quant's code. Found 4 more references. Tesla_model_s_success.json. Facebook_mobile_revenue.json. Twitter_IPO_timing.json. Apple_watch_announcement.json. Each one a time bomb waiting to explode his cover story. He deleted the references, scrubbed the code, triple-checked every data pipeline. Then he sat back and faced the deeper problem. He'd sold Charles and Dr. Kim on the story that Phantom Quant worked because of sophisticated but conventional methods. Now he'd added alternative data to explain the Juniper anomaly. But maintaining that lie meant making Phantom Quant actually generate good but not perfect results going forward. Not too good, or they'd investigate. Not too bad, or they'd cut him loose. He needed to deliberately sabotage his own algorithm. Felix opened a new file and started coding what he privately called the mediocrity engine, a layer of randomization that would inject just enough noise into Phantom Quant signals to make them look legitimate but not supernatural. The logic was elegant in its deception. When Phantom Quant generated high-confidence signals based on Felix's future knowledge, the mediocrity engine would randomly downgrade some to medium confidence. It would occasionally inject false signals, plausible trades that would lose money. It would add timing delays, making perfect entries look like good but not optimal entries. Most importantly, it would generate extensive logging that made everything look like it came from the conventional data sources. Felix spent 6 hours building the system, testing it against historical data, making sure it degraded performance just enough to be believable. By 3 a.m. he had something that would turn his god-tier predictions into merely excellent predictions. The algorithm that could have made him a billionaire, deliberately crippled to keep him alive. His phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number, impressive save with Dr. Kim. The jet tracking story was clever. But we both know there's more. M. Marcus. Still watching. Still waiting for Felix to fail. Felix deleted the message and returned to his code. He had to make Phantom Quant perform well enough to satisfy Charles, but not so well that it attracted more attention from predators like Marcus. Walking a tightrope while juggling chainsaws while everyone watched for him to slip. The next 2 weeks became a masterclass in calculated mediocrity. Felix's first trade, the Juniper position, sat in the account like a loaded gun. $10,000 waiting for a patent settlement announcement that only Felix knew was coming. Meanwhile, he had to trade actively enough to justify the $200,000 Charles had invested. Dr. Kim reviewed every position, questioning logic, demanding explanations. Felix bought Amazon at $268 based on cloud service momentum. Sold at $274 6 days later. 2.2% gain. Bought Bank of America at $12.83 based on improving housing data. Stopped out at $12.61. 1.7% loss. Bought Microsoft at $33.45 based on enterprise software cycle. Sold at $34.12. 2% gain. Small wins. Small losses. The kind of performance a good trader might generate. Nothing supernatural. But every night Felix knew he was leaving money on the table. He knew Amazon would hit 400 by 2015. Knew Microsoft would split and soar. Knew every move that would have made him rich if he could just take them without hiding. The mediocrity engine was working perfectly, which meant Felix was deliberately underperforming his potential by about 10,000%. Dr. Kim's weekly review, Wednesday morning, you're up 1.8% on the account. Respectable for 2 weeks. Several good calls, couple small losses. Overall risk management looks solid. Thanks. The Juniper position is still open. Down about 0.5% currently. Still confident? Felix nodded, knowing in 3 days Juniper would announce the patent settlement. Still confident. Your jet tracking theory better be right. Charles is watching this account closely. After the meeting, Felix walked through downtown trying to breathe. His phone showed market data, account values, the positions he was managing. 214,000 after his trades. Up 7% in 2 weeks. Respectable. Mediocre. Nothing that would make anyone suspect he could see the future. Friday morning, 6:47 a.m., Juniper Networks issued a press release. Juniper and Cisco reach agreement on patent portfolio. Settlement terms confidential. Juniper receives favorable licensing terms. The stock gapped up at open, 15.84 to 19.47. Up 22.9% in 30 seconds. Felix's $10,000 position was now worth $12,290. His phone exploded with messages. Dr. Kim, Felix. Holy shit. How did you know? Jennifer, Mr. Everett wants to see you. Now. Daniel, dude, I saw JNPR. Did you call that? Maya, heard you made a huge trade. That's amazing. And from an unknown number, interesting. Very interesting. M. Felix sat in his bedroom watching the position value tick up, feeling the walls close in. He'd called it too perfectly. The jet tracking story wouldn't hold up under serious scrutiny. Plenty of executives traveled without deals happening. The odds of randomly catching this specific opportunity were astronomical. He'd proven Phantom Quant was too good. Exactly what he couldn't afford. Charles Everett's office, 10 a.m. Felix sat across the desk while Charles read Dr. Kim's report, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. 23% gain in one trade, Charles said. Based on executive jet movements and your alternative data sources. That's remarkable, Felix. Thank you. Dr. Kim is recommending we increase position sizes on your high conviction calls. Says your alternative data methodology has proven itself. Charles set down the report. I agree. Starting Monday, you'll have 400,000 to trade. Let's see what you can really do. Felix's stomach dropped. More capital meant more pressure to perform. More scrutiny. More opportunities to reveal that Phantom Quant wasn't a legitimate system but a facade covering impossible knowledge. I appreciate the confidence, but... No buts. You've earned it. Charles leaned forward. You know what I see when I look at you, Felix? Potential. Raw talent that needs proper resources to flourish. With my capital and infrastructure behind you, you could build something extraordinary. It was praise wrapped around a trap. More capital meant deeper integration into Everett's systems. More oversight. More chances for Felix to make mistakes that exposed him. There's one condition, Charles continued. I want full documentation of your alternative data sources. Dr. Kim's assessed legal risk, but I need to understand exactly what gives you your edge. If we're going to scale this, I need complete transparency. There it was. The demand Felix had been dreading. Some of the methods are experimental, Felix said carefully. Still being refined. I'm not sure they're ready for full documentation. Make them ready. By end of week. Charles's smile disappeared. I'm investing serious capital in your operation, Felix. In return, I need to know exactly what I'm investing in. Every method. Every data source. Every edge you have. And if I'm not comfortable sharing everything? The temperature in the office dropped 10 degrees. Then we reevaluate our partnership, Charles said quietly. I don't invest in black boxes. Either I understand what makes you successful, or we're done. Your choice. Felix sat very still, calculating options. Give Charles full documentation and expose the lie, Phantom Quant would fall apart under detailed technical review. Refuse and lose the protection and capital he needed to survive the next phase. 1 week, Felix said. I'll have complete documentation ready. Good. Jennifer will set up another audit with Dr. Kim. Full technical review. And Felix? Charles smiled without warmth. Don't disappoint me. People who disappoint me tend to regret it. Felix walked out knowing he had 7 days to build documentation for a system that only worked because he died and come back with 12 years of perfect knowledge. Impossible. It was impossible. Unless he got creative. Saturday morning Felix sat in his bedroom surrounded by energy drinks and desperation, building the most elaborate lie of his second life. The documentation had to explain everything, the Juniper win, the consistent small gains, the alternative data that justified his success. It had to be technical enough to satisfy Dr. Kim but vague enough that nobody could actually replicate it. He started with the foundation, an expanded explanation of the jet tracking system. Made it sound more sophisticated than it was. Added complexity layers, weather pattern analysis, executives travel more before deals, hotel booking data, conference room reservations near headquarters, even satellite imagery analysis, parking lot patterns at corporate campuses. None of it actually worked at scale. But it sounded plausible. Then he built fake data pipelines, scripts that appeared to pull information from sources that would justify his predictions. He couldn't show them actual insider information, but he could show them systems that could theoretically detect insider information indirectly. Corporate filing analysis. SEC document keyword tracking. Dark pool trade pattern recognition. Options positioning algorithms. Every system legitimate. Every system producing signals that looked like they might explain his success. The key was making it complex enough that testing it would be difficult and time-consuming. By the time they realized the systems didn't actually generate his specific predictions, Felix would have executed his next plays and built enough capital to survive independently. His phone buzzed. Maya, wanna grab coffee? Haven't seen you in weeks. Felix stared at the message. He'd been so consumed with survival, trading, lying, dodging predators, that he'd barely spoken to anyone from his actual life. Maya. Daniel. His classmates. The normal 18-year-old existence he was supposed to have. But he wasn't a normal 18-year-old. He was a 30-year-old man trapped in a teenager's body, playing financial chess against billionaires who'd crush him if they learned the truth. Buried in work, he texted back. Rain check? You're always buried in work lately. Everything okay? No. Nothing was okay. He was maintaining a house of cards that got taller and more unstable with every passing day. Just a lot going on. I'll explain soon. Promise. He set the phone down and returned to building documentation that would buy him another few weeks before the next crisis. Sunday night, 11 p.m., Felix finished the last page. 216 pages of technical documentation explaining Phantom Quant's alternative data methodology. Dense, complex, technical enough that it would take Dr. Kim days to fully parse. And buried within it, enough half-truths and misdirection that she'd hopefully conclude Felix was brilliant but reckless rather than fraudulent. He encrypted the file, uploaded it to Everett Capital's secure server, and sent Jennifer an email, documentation complete. Ready for review. Then he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, knowing that in a few days Dr. Kim would tear through his documentation like a forensic accountant hunting fraud. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Felix Han. Marcus Chen's voice, amused. That Juniper trade was impressive. The kind of impressive that makes people ask questions. I got lucky. You got lucky 6 times in a row. Luck doesn't work that way. Marcus paused. My employers are very interested in how you knew about the Juniper settlement 3 weeks in advance. Very interested in your jet tracking theory. Very interested in meeting the teenager who's making Charles Everett look like an amateur. Felix's pulse spiked. I'm not interested in meeting your employers. You will be. Because Charles is about to figure out you're not being completely honest with him. And when he does, you'll need friends. Real friends. Not billionaires who protect you as long as you're profitable. I'll take my chances. Will you? Marcus's voice dropped. Let me paint a picture, Felix. Dr. Kim reviews your documentation. Finds inconsistencies. Digs deeper. Discovers your systems don't actually work as well as you claim. Charles gets angry. Very angry. And suddenly you're 18, broke, and facing potential securities fraud charges because you couldn't explain how you made impossible predictions. Every word landed like a hammer. That's when you call me, Marcus continued. When you're desperate and cornered and need extraction. We'll still help. But like I said, terms won't be generous. Not after you chose Charles over us. The call ended. Felix lay in the dark of his childhood bedroom, surrounded by enemies on all sides, maintaining a lie that was crumbling faster than he could repair it. In 1 week Dr. Kim would review his documentation. In 3 months his performance would degrade enough that Charles would terminate their partnership. Unless Felix found a way to make Phantom Quant legitimately powerful. Or unless he disappeared before anyone figured out the truth. His mother's footsteps creaked in the hallway. She knocked softly. Baby? You awake? Yeah, Mom. She opened the door, backlit by the hallway light. You haven't slept well in weeks. I'm worried about you. I'm okay. Just stress. She sat on the edge of his bed like she had when he was young. You're carrying something heavy. I can see it. You know you can talk to me about anything, right? If only. If he told her the truth, I died in an alley and came back, I've been lying to billionaires, I'm maintaining a fake algorithm to survive, she'd think he'd lost his mind. Just trying to make something of myself, Felix said. Build a future so you don't have to work so hard. His mother brushed hair from his forehead. Baby, I don't need you to save me. I just need you to be okay. Happy. Safe. Her voice cracked slightly. Money doesn't matter if you're not okay. But it did matter. In another timeline she'd died because he couldn't afford proper care. Died exhausted and broke. This time would be different. Even if it killed him. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby. Get some sleep. Whatever you're dealing with, it'll still be there tomorrow. After she left, Felix opened his laptop one more time. Pulled up his encrypted files with 12 years of perfect knowledge. The timeline that could make him billions if he could just use it without hiding. But hiding was survival. And survival meant maintaining the lie until he was powerful enough that the truth didn't matter. Felix closed the laptop and tried to sleep. 3 days until Dr. Kim's review. 90 days until his partnership with Charles exploded. And somewhere in the shadows, Marcus Chen and Helix Capital were waiting for Felix to fail so they could swoop in and take everything. The knife in the alley had been simpler. At least then Felix had only died once. The frame. Felix was eating breakfast Tuesday morning when his phone buzzed with Dr. Kim's email. The subject line made his cereal taste like cardboard. Urgent, data irregularities found, review moved to tomorrow 9 a.m. His hands shook as he opened it. Felix. During preliminary review of your documentation, I discovered several concerning irregularities in your data ingestion logs. Specifically, 1. Unexplained API calls to external servers not mentioned in your documentation. 2. Data packets with encrypted payloads that bypass your standard processing pipeline. 3. Timestamps suggesting data retrieval before market events, not after. This suggests either, A. You have additional data sources you haven't disclosed. B. Your logging system has serious bugs. C. Something else is going on. We need to discuss this immediately. I've moved the review to tomorrow 9 a.m. Bring your laptop and be prepared to explain every connection, every data source, every anomaly. This is serious, Felix. If I find evidence of insider information or illegal data acquisition, I'm legally obligated to report it. Dr. Kim. Felix's vision tunneled. His mother was saying something about needing to leave for work early, but her voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. Irregularities in the logs. Data he hadn't disclosed. Timestamps that suggested impossible knowledge. He'd been so careful. Scrubbed everything. Made sure Phantom Quant's data sources were clean and legitimate. Felix bolted to his room, locked the door, and pulled up his laptop with shaking hands. Opened the logging system and started searching for the anomalies Dr. Kim had mentioned. There, buried in the logs from 3 nights ago. July 16, 2013 2:47 and 33 seconds, API_call, external_feed_delta_7. July 16, 2013 2:47 and 41 seconds, encrypted_payload, 2.4 megabytes received. July 16, 2013 2:47 and 45 seconds, data_integration, pre_event_knowledge_base. July 16, 2013 2:47 and 52 seconds, prediction_override, JNPR confidence adjusted 51%, greater than 84%. Felix's blood turned to ice. He'd never written those log entries. Never created an external_feed_delta_7 connection. Never built a pre_event_knowledge_base module. Never coded a prediction override system. These logs were fabricated. Someone had gotten into his system and inserted false evidence. He checked the metadata. The entries were timestamped for 2:47 a.m. on July 16. Last Tuesday. A night Felix had been asleep after finishing the documentation. The IP address matched his home network. The user account was his. But Felix hadn't been awake at 2:47 a.m. And he sure as hell hadn't built secret data feeds called pre_event_knowledge_base. Someone had remote access to his laptop. Had logged in while he slept. Had planted evidence designed to make Phantom Quant look like it was receiving insider information or predictive intelligence from external sources. Felix checked his system access logs with hands that couldn't stay steady. July 16, 2013 2:31 and 17 seconds, remote session initiated, IP, 184.72.44.198. July 16, 2013 2:31 and 22 seconds, user authentication, success. July 16, 2013 2:47 and 9 seconds, file system access, /log/data_ingestion/. July 16, 2013 2:53 and 41 seconds, file modification, ingestion_log_july.txt. July 16, 2013 2:54 and 3 seconds, remote session terminated. The remote IP traced back to a server farm in Virginia. Professional. Anonymous. Impossible to track without law enforcement resources. Felix sat back, his mind racing through implications. This wasn't Dr. Kim digging deeper and finding his real secrets. This was someone actively sabotaging him. Planting evidence that would force Dr. Kim to investigate harder, that would make Charles suspicious, that would potentially bring legal trouble. Someone who wanted Felix cornered and desperate. Someone who'd offered him a partnership and been refused. Felix pulled out his phone and stared at the business card he'd saved as a contact, Marcus Chen. Helix Capital wasn't waiting for Felix to fail naturally. They were accelerating his destruction. Making him look like a fraud or a criminal so that when everything collapsed, Felix would have nowhere to go except back to them. And the beauty of it, the sick elegance, was that Felix couldn't simply show Dr. Kim the evidence of hacking. Because explaining how he knew the logs were fabricated would require admitting he'd been monitoring his own system obsessively because he was hiding something. The frame was perfect. If Felix claimed the logs were fake, he looked like he was covering up. If he couldn't explain the logs, he looked guilty of insider trading or data theft. Either way, his partnership with Charles collapsed and his protection evaporated, leaving him vulnerable to Helix's next move. Felix's phone rang. Unknown number. His stomach clenched as he answered. Felix. Marcus Chen's voice, smooth as oil. I imagine you've received some concerning news this morning. You did this. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm simply calling to remind you that my employer's offer still stands. In fact, given recent complications with your Everett partnership, the timing might be perfect to reconsider. You hacked my system. Planted false logs. That's a serious accusation. Can you prove it? Marcus paused. Because if you can't prove it, then those logs are just evidence of whatever Dr. Kim thinks they're evidence of. And from what I understand, she's quite concerned about unexplained data sources. Felix's grip on the phone tightened until his knuckles went white. What do you want? The same thing I've always wanted, partnership. My employers recognize your talent and would like to properly support it. Without the restrictions and scrutiny that come with working for someone like Charles Everett. By framing me for crimes I didn't commit? By helping you recognize that your current situation is untenable. You're maintaining a lie, Felix. We both know it. Charles knows something's wrong even if he can't articulate what. Dr. Kim is digging deeper every day. Eventually they'll figure out that Phantom Quant doesn't actually explain your success. Marcus's voice dropped. When that happens, and it will happen, you'll need extraction. Professional protection. Resources to disappear and start fresh. And if I say no? Then tomorrow morning you'll sit across from Dr. Kim and try to explain data logs you can't explain. She'll report her concerns to Charles. Charles will terminate your partnership and possibly pursue legal action for fraud. And you'll be 18, broke, and facing federal securities investigations. Marcus let that sink in. Or, he continued, you call me back in the next 12 hours. We arrange a quiet exit. You bring Phantom Quant and your mysterious edge to Helix. We provide new identity, clean systems, capital to trade with. And most importantly, we don't ask uncomfortable questions about how you know things you shouldn't know. The implied threat landed like a physical blow. They knew. Maybe not the specifics, that Felix had died and come back, but they knew his success wasn't explainable through conventional means. 12 hours, Felix. After that, the offer expires and you're on your own. The call ended. Felix sat in his bedroom feeling the walls close in. Helix had maneuvered him into an impossible position. Tomorrow morning he'd have to defend against false evidence while hiding his real secrets. If he succeeded, Helix would escalate, more sabotage, more pressure, more manufactured crises. If he failed, Charles would destroy him and Helix would swoop in anyway. Either way, Helix won. Unless Felix found a third option. Felix spent the next 4 hours analyzing the planted logs with forensic precision. The hack had been sophisticated, used his own credentials, matched his coding style, integrated seamlessly with legitimate entries. But it wasn't perfect. The fabricated entries referenced systems that didn't exist in Phantom Quant's architecture. External_feed_delta_7 wasn't in his codebase. Pre_event_knowledge_base had never been initialized. The prediction override function used syntax patterns Felix never used, camel case instead of his preferred snake_case. Small inconsistencies. But potentially enough to prove the logs were fraudulent. The problem was proving it without admitting he'd been obsessively monitoring his own system. Without raising questions about why he was so paranoid. Without giving Dr. Kim more reasons to suspect he was hiding something. Felix needed a story. A plausible explanation for how he discovered the hack that didn't reveal his real paranoia. He pulled up his security monitoring tools and started building a narrative. Routine security scan, detected unusual access patterns, investigated and found the forged logs. Reasonable. Professional. The kind of thing any smart developer would do. Then he documented everything, screenshots of the inconsistencies, analysis of the syntax differences, timeline of the remote access. Built a case that the logs were planted by an external party trying to sabotage his work. But he couldn't name Helix without proof. And he couldn't explain why Helix would target him without revealing that he'd refused their partnership offer, which would raise questions about why they wanted him so badly in the first place. The lie required more lies to support it. At 3 p.m. Felix's mother came home from the laundromat, found him still at his laptop, and made him eat lunch. She sat across from him studying his face with concern. "Baby, you look terrible. What's wrong?" "Just work stuff, Mom. Complicated project. You're 18. You shouldn't have this kind of stress." She reached across the table and took his hand. "Talk to me. Please. I know something's wrong. You've been different for months, stressed, distant, working all the time. What's going on?" Felix met her eyes and felt the weight of every lie he'd told since coming back. She deserved the truth. Deserved to know her son had died and been given a second chance. Deserved to understand why he was working himself to exhaustion to save her from a future she didn't know was coming. But telling her would make her a target. Would expose her to danger from people like Charles and Marcus who'd use any leverage they could find. "I'm building something, Mom. Something that could change our lives. Give you a real retirement. Make sure you never have to work 60-hour weeks again." His voice cracked. "But it's hard. Complicated. And sometimes I don't know if I'm doing the right thing." His mother squeezed his hand. "Baby, I don't need you to save me. I just need you to be safe. Whatever you're building, is it worth this stress? This fear I see in your eyes? Was it?" Felix had died in an alley with $12. Had watched his mother die in a county hospital. Had been given impossible knowledge and a second chance. Was maintaining that chance through elaborate lies and dangerous partnerships worth the cost? Yes, he said quietly. It's worth it. Even if he wasn't sure anymore. After lunch, Felix returned to his laptop and found a new email from Dr. Kim. Felix. I've completed my preliminary analysis of the data irregularities. The patterns are concerning enough that I've recommended Charles place a temporary hold on the trading account pending tomorrow's review. Additionally, I'm required to inform you that if I find evidence of securities violations, I'll need to file a report with the SEC. This is not a threat, it's my legal obligation as a registered investment advisor. Come prepared tomorrow. Bring all documentation, all source code, all data sources. This review will be comprehensive. Dr. Kim. Felix read it 3 times, feeling his carefully constructed empire crumbling in real time. Account frozen. SEC mentioned. Comprehensive review. Helix's sabotage was working perfectly. His phone buzzed. Text from Daniel. Dude, just saw on Fintwit that Everett Capital froze a trading account for irregularities. Is that you? Word was already spreading. The financial gossip network moving at internet speed. Another text, unknown number, tick-tock, Felix. 8 hours left. M. Felix stood and paced his small bedroom, mind racing through scenarios. Every option led to destruction. Option 1, tell Dr. Kim the truth about the fabricated logs. Reveals he was monitoring his system obsessively, suspicious can't explain why Helix targeted him without revealing he refused their offer. Raises more questions than it answers. Still leaves him unable to explain Phantom Quant's real success rate. Option 2, accept Helix's offer. Gives them access to his methods and future knowledge. Makes him dependent on criminals who've already proven they'll destroy him to get what they want. Loses his independence and protection. Probably ends with him hospitalized like Marcus's last partner. Option 3, cut and run. Liquidate everything, grab his mother, disappear. Abandons the empire he's built. Leaves him broke and vulnerable. Loses the second chance he died to get. Option 4, fight. Expose the hack at tomorrow's review. Hope Dr. Kim believes him. Hope Charles doesn't terminate the partnership anyway. Hope Helix doesn't escalate to physical violence. All bad options. Different flavors of destruction. Felix sat at his desk and pulled up his encrypted files, 12 years of perfect knowledge that had seemed like such an advantage when he'd first come back. Now it felt like a curse. The knowledge that made him valuable also made him a target. Made him someone powerful people would kill to control or eliminate. His mother knocked on the door. Felix? Someone's here to see you. Who? Says her name is Maya. Should I send her up? Felix hadn't spoken to Maya in 2 weeks. Hadn't thought about anything except survival and deception. But Maya represented something he'd lost, the normal life he was supposed to have, the friendships that existed before billionaires and algorithms and frames. Yeah. Send her up. Maya entered his room and immediately knew something was wrong. She'd always been perceptive, one of the things Felix had liked about her in the first timeline, before he'd been too broken to pursue anything real. You look like hell, she said, sitting on his bed. Thanks. Seriously, Felix. What's going on? You've been MIA for weeks. Daniel says you guys aren't working together anymore. And I heard something about Everett Capital freezing an account? Felix wanted to tell her everything. Wanted to unload the weight of every lie, every secret, every impossible truth. But Maya was innocent, untouched by the war he'd stumbled into. Telling her would paint a target on her too. Just business stuff. Complicated partnership that's not working out. Maya studied him with eyes that saw too much. That's bullshit and we both know it. You're scared, Felix. I can see it. What are you scared of? Nothing. I'm fine. You're not fine. You look like someone's holding a gun to your head. She leaned forward. Talk to me. Please. Whatever this is, you don't have to face it alone. But he did. That was the curse of his second chance. The knowledge was his alone, the burden was his alone, the consequences were his alone. Sharing it would just spread the damage. I appreciate you checking on me, Felix said carefully. But I've got this under control. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you look like you're drowning. She wasn't wrong. Felix was drowning, in lies, in pressure, in threats from predators on all sides. But he'd chosen this path. Had known the risks when he started. I should go, Maya said after a long silence. But Felix? Whatever you're doing, whoever you're dealing with, be careful. Real careful. Because the person I'm looking at right now doesn't look like someone who's winning. After she left, Felix sat in the silence of his room and admitted the truth to himself: he wasn't winning. He was barely surviving. And tomorrow morning he'd have to defend against sabotage while hiding his real secrets from one of the sharpest analytical minds in the financial industry. The odds of making it through intact were approaching zero. His phone buzzed. 9 p.m. Text from Marcus: 5 hours, Felix. After midnight, you're on your own. Felix looked at his laptop, Phantom Quant's code, the fabricated logs, the documentation he'd built to sustain a lie. Looked at his phone, Marcus's number, the escape hatch to people who'd own him completely but at least keep him alive. Looked at the encrypted files containing 12 years of perfect knowledge that should have made him invincible but instead had made him a target. He'd died once in an alley over $12. This time he'd built an empire worth hundreds of thousands and created enemies worth billions. The knife had been simpler. Felix opened a new document and started writing. Not documentation. Not code. A letter. To whoever finds this. My name is Felix Hahn. If you're reading this, something has gone very wrong. What follows is the truth about Phantom Quant, about my predictions, about everything. I died on Tuesday, April 9, 2025. I was 30 years old, murdered in an alley behind a convenience store. Then I woke up on Monday, April 15, 2013, back in my 18-year-old body with 12 years of perfect future knowledge. Everything I've done, every trade, every prediction, every success, comes from memory, not from algorithms or insider information or data feeds. I know what stocks will rise because I lived through them rising. I know about the Juniper patent settlement because I read about it in 2013 the first time. Phantom Quant is a facade. A sophisticated lie I built to explain the unexplainable. The algorithm doesn't work. I work. My memory works. Everything else is smoke and mirrors. The fabricated logs in my system were planted by Helix Capital, a shadow organization trying to force me into partnership by destroying my credibility with Everett Capital Partners. Marcus Chen is their recruiter. They know I have an edge they can't explain and they want to control it. Charles Everett thinks I'm a genius teenager who built a revolutionary algorithm. Dr. Rachel Kim suspects I'm hiding something but doesn't know what. Neither of them can imagine the truth because the truth is impossible. If I disappear, if I'm found dead or missing or hospitalized, it's because Helix got tired of waiting. They've already proven they'll destroy anyone who refuses to work for them. I don't know who to trust. I don't know how to escape. I'm writing this as insurance, so someone knows the truth if everything falls apart. I just wanted to save my mother. To rewrite the future where she died broke and exhausted. To build something that mattered. Instead, I created a house of lies that's collapsing faster than I can prop it up. If you're reading this, I'm probably dead. Again. Felix Hahn, July 16, 2013, 11:47 p.m. Felix encrypted the letter, uploaded it to a cloud storage service with instructions to auto-send to multiple journalists if he didn't check in weekly. Insurance. Mutually assured destruction. If Helix or Everett or anyone else took him out, the truth would explode publicly. Not perfect protection. But better than nothing. His phone showed 11:58 p.m. 2 minutes until Marcus's deadline. Felix stared at the business card, his thumb hovering over the call button. Every instinct screamed that accepting Helix's offer was a trap that would end worse than any alternative. But refusing meant facing Dr. Kim tomorrow with no good options. Meant watching his empire collapse while predators circled. Meant potentially facing federal investigation for securities violations he hadn't committed. The phone showed midnight. Felix didn't call. Instead, he opened his laptop and started building one final gambit, something so audacious, so insane, that it might actually work. If he was going down, he'd go down fighting. And if Helix wanted him desperate enough to accept their terms, Felix would show them what a 30-year-old mind trapped in an 18-year-old body could do when backed into a corner. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., he'd walk into Dr. Kim's review carrying documentation that would either save him or destroy him completely. But he wouldn't walk in defenseless. Not this time. Felix worked through the night, fingers flying across the keyboard, building something that would change the game entirely. By 6 a.m. his eyes burned and his hands shook from exhaustion and energy drinks. But he had a plan. Not a good plan. Not even a safe plan. But a plan that might, just might, let him survive another day. His phone buzzed. 6:13 a.m. Text from Marcus: you made your choice. Hope it was worth it. See you soon. M. Felix deleted the message and showered, dressed, ate breakfast with his mother who looked at him with worry but didn't push. At 8:45 a.m. he walked into Everett Capital carrying his laptop and a folder containing 200 pages of documentation. Dr. Kim waited in the conference room with Jennifer Torres and two people Felix didn't recognize, a lawyer and an IT security specialist based on their expressions. This wasn't a review. This was an interrogation. Felix, Dr. Kim said. Sit down. We have a lot to discuss. Felix sat, placing his laptop on the table with steady hands despite the terror screaming through his brain. Let's start with the data logs, Dr. Kim continued, pulling up one of her monitors. Specifically, the entries from July 16 showing unexplained external connections and encrypted data feeds. This was it. The moment everything either survived or exploded. Felix opened his laptop, pulled up his own documentation, and looked Dr. Kim directly in the eyes. Those logs are fabricated, he said calmly. Planted by someone who hacked my system. And I can prove it. The room went silent. Dr. Kim leaned forward, expression unreadable. You're claiming someone framed you? Yes. Why would someone do that? Felix took a breath and played the card he'd been building all night, the truth, but not the whole truth. Because I refused a partnership with a group called Helix Capital. They wanted access to my methodology. I said no. So they're trying to destroy my credibility with effort to force me back to them. Dr. Kim glanced at the lawyer. Jennifer's pen stopped moving. That's a serious accusation, Dr. Kim said. Can you prove any of this? Felix smiled grimly. Actually, yes. I can prove all of it. He opened his laptop and began the most important presentation of his second life. Felix projected both sets of logs onto the conference room screen with the calm precision of someone who'd already died once and had nothing left to lose. Before we discuss what these logs claim, he said, voice steady, let's discuss what they claim as possible. Dr. Kim leaned forward, arms crossed. The IT security specialist, introduced as Robert Chen, no relation to Marcus, opened his own laptop. The lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Valdez, watched Felix like a hawk studying prey. Felix highlighted the first fabricated entry. July 16, 2013 2:47 and 33 seconds, API_call, external_feed_delta_7. This log claims Phantom Quan initiated an API call to a module called external_feed_delta_7. Felix pulled up his complete codebase on the adjacent screen. Here's every module in Phantom Quant's architecture. 23 total. Search for delta_7. Dr. Kim typed into her system. After 5 seconds she looked up. No results. Correct. Because that module doesn't exist. Never has. Felix clicked to the next entry. Now look at this one. July 16, 2013 2:47 and 45 seconds, data_integration, pre_event_knowledge_base. Pre_event_knowledge_base. Sounds sophisticated. Sounds like exactly the kind of insider information system you'd be concerned about. Felix opened his initialization files. Except Phantom Quan initializes every data structure at startup. Here's the complete list. He scrolled through the startup logs, clean, documented, every module properly initialized. No pre_event_knowledge_base anywhere. Dr. Kim's expression shifted fractionally. She was starting to see it. A system can't call a module that doesn't exist, Felix continued. It would throw an exception immediately. Crash the entire program. Yet according to my runtime logs, the legitimate ones, Phantom Quant executed perfectly that night. No crashes. No errors. No exceptions. Robert, the IT security specialist, pulled up his own analysis. Show me the execution time intervals. Felix had been waiting for this. He pulled up a comparison chart. Phantom Quant normal execution pattern. Data ingestion, 0.8 to 1.2 seconds. Sentiment analysis, 2.3 to 3.1 seconds. Technical calculations, 1.5 to 2.0 seconds. Signal aggregation, 0.5 to 0.8 seconds. Total minimum cycle, 5.1 seconds. Fabricated log timestamps. 2:47 and 33 seconds, API call initiated. 2:47 and 41 seconds, encrypted payload received, 8 seconds 2:47 and 45 seconds, data integration complete, 4 seconds 2:47 and 52 seconds, prediction override executed, 7 seconds notice something? Felix said. The fabricated entries show data integration completing in 4 seconds. But Phantom Quant's data integration pipeline has a minimum execution time of 5.1 seconds due to external API rate limits and processing overhead. It's physically impossible for the system to complete integration in 4 seconds. Dr. Kim stood and moved closer to the screen, studying the timestamps with intense focus. Moreover, Felix continued, highlighting another inconsistency, look at the function call syntax. Prediction underscore override, JNPR confidence adjusted 51%, greater than 84%. He pulled up his actual codebase. Every function in Phantom Quant uses snake underscore case naming convention. See? Calculate underscore sentiment, integrate underscore data, generate underscore signals. But this fabricated log uses camel case, prediction override. That's not my coding style. I've never written a single camel case function in this entire project. Patricia, the lawyer, made notes on her tablet. These inconsistencies are definitive proof? Not just inconsistencies, impossibilities. Felix opened a clean copy of Phantom Quant in a sandboxed environment. Watch what happens if I actually try to execute the operations these logs claim occurred. He typed in commands attempting to call the non-existent modules. Python. Import external underscore feed underscore delta underscore 7. Module not found error, no module named external underscore feed underscore delta underscore 7. System.initialize underscore knowledge underscore base pre underscore event attribute error, Phantom Quant system object has no attribute initialize underscore knowledge underscore base. Prediction, override JNPR, 84 name error, name prediction override is not defined. The system threw 3 immediate errors. The sandbox environment crashed. If these operations had actually occurred, Felix said, Phantom Quant would have crashed instantly. Yet my system ran perfectly that entire night. Generated legitimate signals the next morning. Continued functioning without errors. He turned to face Dr. Kim directly. The only explanation is that these log entries were inserted after the fact, by someone with system access who didn't fully understand my codebase architecture. The room fell silent. Dr. Kim returned to her seat, fingers steepled, expression intense with calculation. Robert, the security specialist, broke the silence. Show me the remote access logs again. Felix pulled them up. July 16, 2013 2:31 and 17 seconds, remote session initiated, IP, 184.72.44.198. July 16, 2013 2:31 and 22 seconds, user authentication, success. July 16, 2013 2:47 and 9 seconds, file system access, /log/data_ingestion/. July 16, 2013 2:53 and 41 seconds, file modification, ingestion_log_july.txt. July 16, 2013 2:54 and 3 seconds, remote session terminated. Robert pulled up his own monitoring system and started cross-referencing. After 2 minutes his expression darkened. That IP address, he said slowly. 184.72.44.198. It's registered to a server farm in Northern Virginia. But the interesting part is the connection signature. He turned his laptop to show Dr. Kim. The authentication handshake uses a specific protocol configuration, custom encryption, unusual port sequencing. I've seen this pattern before. Where? Patricia demanded. Robert's jaw tightened. 3 months ago, we consulted on a security breach at Thorn Capital. Same signature. Same Virginia server farm. We traced it back to a group called Helix Capital. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Jennifer Torres leaned forward. Helix Capital. That's the group Marcus Chen works for. Felix's heart hammered, but he kept his face neutral. Yes. The same Marcus Chen who contacted me 3 weeks ago offering a partnership. Who I refused. Dr. Kim's eyes sharpened like lasers. When exactly did he contact you? First meeting was June 24th. He claimed his employers noticed my trading pattern and wanted to offer support. Felix pulled up his phone, showed them the saved business card. I declined. He said I'd regret it. 2 weeks later, these logs appeared. Patricia made rapid notes. Did he threaten you explicitly? Not directly. Just said his employers were patient and that when things fell apart with Everett, they'd still be interested. But the terms wouldn't be as generous. And you didn't report this? Dr. Kim's voice had an edge. Report what? A business proposition? I didn't think. Felix stopped, let genuine fear show in his voice. I didn't realize they'd actually sabotage my system. I thought it was just aggressive recruiting. Dr. Kim exchanged glances with Patricia and Robert. Some silent communication passed between them that Felix couldn't read. Then Dr. Kim turned back to him. Felix, I need you to be completely honest right now. Have you had any other contact with Helix or Marcus Chen since refusing their initial offer? He's called twice. Sent texts. Felix showed them his phone. Most recently last night. Said I had until midnight to reconsider or the offer expired. What time did these fabricated logs appear in your system? Based on the file modification timestamps, July 16 around 2:47 a.m. 4 days ago. Patricia pulled up a calendar. And when did you submit your documentation to us? Sunday night. July 14. So Helix planted false evidence 2 days after you submitted documentation but before our review. Patricia's eyes narrowed. That's not coincidence. Someone knew when the audit was scheduled. The implication hung heavy in the air. Either Helix had inside information about Everett Capital's processes, or they had access to systems beyond just Felix's laptop. Robert started typing rapidly. I need to run a full security sweep. If Helix compromised Felix's system, they might have access to our networks too. Do it, Dr. Kim said immediately. And get our cybersecurity team in here. Now. Jennifer left the room making calls. Felix sat very still, watching his gambit unfold. He'd turned the frame around, made himself the victim of corporate espionage instead of the perpetrator of fraud. But the danger hadn't passed. Now he'd escalated a secret war into an open conflict. Helix wouldn't take this quietly. Dr. Kim pulled her chair closer to Felix. I need to ask you something, and I need the truth. Is there anything about your methodology, anything real, not fabricated, that could be considered insider information or illegal data acquisition? This was the moment. The question that could still destroy everything. Felix met her eyes. No. Everything I do is based on public data, pattern recognition, and judgment calls. The jet tracking, the sentiment analysis, all of it, unconventional maybe, but legal. Then why would Helix go to such lengths to frame you? Because I said no. And apparently people don't say no to them. Dr. Kim studied him for a long moment. Then she stood. All right. Here's what happens next. Robert runs a full security audit. Patricia prepares documentation of this incident. We contact the SEC and FBI about potential corporate espionage. And Felix, you're staying under Everett Capital protection until this is resolved. What does that mean? It means you don't go anywhere alone. We're assigning you security. Your systems get isolated and secured. And you're suspended from trading until we verify Helix hasn't compromised your trading accounts too. Felix's stomach dropped. Suspended? For how long? Until we're certain you're clean. Could be days. Could be weeks. Dr. Kim's expression softened slightly. I know this isn't what you wanted. But if Helix really did compromise your system, they could have installed backdoors, keyloggers, anything. We need to be sure. She was right, but it meant Felix couldn't execute his next trades. Couldn't use his future knowledge while he had it. Every day suspended was opportunity cost measured in tens of thousands of dollars. But arguing would look suspicious. Felix nodded. I understand. Good. Now walk me through your security practices. How Helix might have gained access in the first place. Felix spent the next hour detailing his system setup, where he'd been careful, where he'd been careless. Admitted he'd used Daniel's systems early on, which might have created vulnerabilities. Explained his home network wasn't as secure as it should be for someone handling serious money. Robert took notes, wincing at some of Felix's admissions. Your operational security was not great. I'm 18. I didn't know I'd need to defend against professional hackers. You do now, Robert said grimly. Helix is serious. They've hit 3 firms we know of in the past year. Usually targeting quants or traders with unique methodologies. They either recruit them or steal their IP. Sometimes both. Patricia returned with 2 people Felix didn't recognize, a woman in a dark suit and a man carrying tactical gear. Felix Hahn, meet Sarah Chen and Marcus Rivera. They're private security. Former Secret Service and FBI respectively. They'll be your shadows until this situation resolves. Felix looked at the 2 professionals, both probably early 30s, both carrying themselves with the coiled alertness of people trained to hurt other people efficiently. Is this really necessary? Helix's last recruitment target who refused them ended up hospitalized, Patricia said flatly. Officially it was a mugging. Unofficially, 3 broken ribs and a warning that next time would be worse. So yes, it's necessary. Felix thought about the photo Marcus had shown him. The traitor who'd tried to leave. The hospital bed. The warning. Okay, he said quietly. What do I need to do? Sarah stepped forward. First, we secure your home. Install monitoring, update your networks, ensure your family's safe. Your mother still lives with you? Yes. She gets briefed on basic security protocols. No discussing Felix's work with anyone. No unusual visitors. No changes to routine without clearing with us first. Felix imagined trying to explain to his mother why former FBI agents needed to install security cameras in their house. Why she couldn't talk about his trading. Why everything had suddenly become classified. She'd think he'd lost his mind. Or worse, she'd realize he'd gotten involved with something dangerous and insist he walk away. Can we keep this low profile? My mom doesn't need to know all the details. We'll brief her appropriately, Marcus said. But she needs to understand there's a threat. We can't protect her if she doesn't take it seriously. Before Felix could respond, Jennifer burst back into the room. We have a problem. The SEC just called. Someone filed a whistleblower complaint against Felix Hahn and Everett Capital Partners. Anonymous. Claims evidence of insider trading and data manipulation. The room went silent. When? Dr. Kim demanded. 20 minutes ago. Right after our meeting started. Everyone turned to look at Felix. Helix, Robert said. Has to be. They knew we were meeting. Probably monitoring Felix's movements. When he came here this morning, they filed the complaint as insurance. Patricia swore under her breath. That's aggressive. Even for them. What does this mean? Felix asked, though he already knew the answer. Dr. Kim's expression was grim. It means the SEC will investigate. They have to. It's a formal complaint with specific allegations. Even if we prove Helix planted the evidence, the investigation process takes months. During which time I can't trade, Felix finished. My accounts get frozen. My partnership with Everett is suspended pending investigation. Everything stops. Exactly. Felix sat back, the full scope of Helix's strategy becoming clear. They hadn't just framed him, they'd created a legal nightmare that would tie him up for months. By the time everything cleared, his perfect trading record would be a distant memory. His reputation would be damaged. His protection from Everett would be conditional at best. And he'd be desperate enough to accept whatever terms Helix offered. Unless Felix found a way to flip this too. Dr. Kim, he said slowly, what if we go on offense? What do you mean? Helix filed a false complaint. That's a crime. What if instead of defending against their accusations, we build a case proving they're running a criminal extortion operation targeting financial professionals? Patricia shook her head. That would require evidence. Lots of it. And time we don't have. We have the hacking evidence. We have Marcus Chen's communications with me. We have the pattern of other firms they've targeted. Felix pulled up his phone. And I have recordings. Everyone stared at him. You recorded your conversations with Marcus Chen? Dr. Kim asked. Not all of them. But the one where he implied they'd planted the logs, yes. California's a two-party consent state, so it's not admissible in court. But it might be enough to convince the SEC that Helix is the real criminal here. It was a bluff. Felix hadn't actually recorded anything, hadn't thought that far ahead. But if it made everyone believe he had leverage, he could buy time to actually create that leverage. Patricia leaned forward. Play it. Felix's mind raced. It's on my home laptop. Encrypted. I can get it tonight. We'll go with you, Sarah said immediately. Secure your systems and extract the recording. Actually, Robert interjected, if that recording exists and proves Helix's involvement, we should copy your entire system immediately. Before Helix realizes we're onto them and tries to remotely wipe evidence. Everyone looked at Felix. He'd just claimed evidence he didn't have. Now he needed to produce it or admit he'd lied, which would destroy the credibility he'd just rebuilt. Think. He had Marcus's texts. He had the call logs. He could create something that looked like a recording, audio of his side of the conversation, imply Marcus's responses. Not perfect, but maybe enough. Let's do it, Felix said. But we need to move fast. If Helix is monitoring my movements, they'll know I'm still here. They might try something. Dr. Kim nodded. Sarah, Marcus, take Felix home. Secure his systems. Get everything we need. Robert, coordinate with FBI. Patricia, start building the complaint against Helix. Jennifer, get Charles on the phone. He needs to know we're in the middle of a corporate espionage situation. Everyone moved. Felix stood, feeling the momentum shift. He'd turned a frame into a counterattack. Made himself valuable as a witness instead of vulnerable as a suspect. But he'd also committed to producing evidence he didn't actually have. He had maybe 3 hours to create a convincing recording before Sarah and Marcus Rivera realized he'd been lying. They headed toward the elevators. Sarah and Marcus flanked him like bodyguards escorting a diplomat through a war zone. Felix's phone buzzed. Text from unknown number, clever move with the logs. But you're making this worse. Last chance to do this the easy way. M. Marcus Chen. Watching. Waiting. Felix deleted the text and followed his new security detail into the elevator. The game had changed. He wasn't just defending anymore, he was attacking. And if he played this right, he might actually survive. But first he needed to create a recording that didn't exist. 3 hours. The elevator descended toward the parking garage, and Felix's mind raced through scenarios, building a plan that would either save him or destroy him completely. The black SUV pulled out of Everett Capital's parking garage with Sarah driving and Marcus Rivera in the passenger seat, both scanning traffic patterns with professional paranoia. Felix sat in the back, phone in hand, pulse hammering. 3 hours to create evidence that didn't exist. "Talk me through your home security setup," Marcus said without turning around. "Cameras? Alarm system? Network configuration?" "None of that. Just basic Wi-Fi router. No security cameras." Felix kept his voice steady. "I told you, I didn't know I needed that level of protection. You do now." Sarah merged onto the highway, eyes flicking between mirrors. White sedan, 3 cars back. "Been following since we left the garage." Marcus pulled out his phone, typed rapidly. "Calling it in. Robert can track the plates." Felix twisted to look. A white Honda Civic, generic enough to disappear in traffic. Tinted windows. Keeping exact pace with their SUV. "Could be coincidence," Felix said. "Could be." Marcus's tone suggested he didn't believe in coincidences. But Felix knew about the SEC complaint timing. Knew about our meeting schedule. "They're tracking you somehow." "My phone?"